is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
This could be 4-down territory again. There's the look in. It's Johnston. First down at the 10.
Nice run there or draw, either one.
Johnston in motion. Play fake. There it is. The tight end, Wiley.
Wow. Good job, Jim.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Race over 100 yards with a chance for an exclamation point. Touchdown, Baylor!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Daniels will jump pass. Touchdown, Kansas, Trevor Cardell.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Hall to the outside. Touchdown. Cody Evans.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is all back together. Craig Smoak back after a nice little respite over the weekend. Great to have you back, Craig.
Glad to be back.
365 Sports, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak in the background today, but always full throttle helping us out. Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie. Also, Emery Winter, who's already starting to work on what we have tonight at 10:30 on Sports Tonight in the CW channel. But more than that, feeding a lot of what we do when it comes to social media. And then Levi Caraway, who was here yesterday for the first time in months, is a no-show.
He'll be here. He had an interview today.
Got a story with him. I need to ask him when he gets here at some point. There was a bet that he and somebody else had on the site, Sikkim365.com, that I think Levi won hundreds of dollars on a bet involving Baylor softball and Baylor baseball. And so we'll have that with him when he arrives. We'll ask him a little bit about that. Hall of Famer Tom Glavine today on what he has seen now that we're a month and a half into Major League Baseball's rules changes and all that. Plus, the Braves shellacked the Rangers last night in Arlington, beat them up pretty good. And former Baylor pitcher Cody Bradford, he's a good young pitcher, but had some that just hung a little bit, and the Braves knocked him out of the park. Brandon Marcelo, 247 Sports, and Ross Dellinger today, SI.com, on the story from yesterday about the ACC and the Magnificent Seven, which is what Magnificent Seven, which is Brett McMurphy calls 7 schools in the ACC trying to figure out a way to get loose or possibly change things. Ross had the story about many things, realignment. And then also Brandon Marcelo yesterday, a report that I'm not sure if you saw this, as everyone walked out of the meetings, nobody said a word, which might be a smart thing. It was almost like everybody was told not to say anything. They walked out. There were no comments.
It's not like almost. They were told not to say anything.
Silence. And so we'll have him on today. That's why I asked him on the show today at 4 o'clock. Plus, we'll have John McClain, Paul's Top 5, and Craig and Off the Radar. So the ACC, which is trying to figure things out, its focus of attention has been on the Pac-12 or what's going to happen there, maybe the Big 12 and what they might do, and now it shifted to the East Coast yesterday and got a lot of play throughout the day.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting. I'm not sure what they've got to have, I said this yesterday, several layers of a plan here, because the teams that are going to be left out of this, and there will be some that are left out of this, are going to want the money they would get. The ACC only has one TV partner. It's ESPN. That's it. They have to deal with that. They have to figure out, okay, so you could dissolve the conference, but that's only going to work if more than just Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina, say, have a place to go. That's the only way that if I'm NC State, I'm signing off on this Magnificent Seven deal, is that I know that I'll have a place to go. And, the private schools in this are really kind of stuck, and Wake and Duke in particular. Miami's not, because they're part of the Magnificent Seven, but Wake and Duke are kind of stuck. Syracuse is kind of out in no man's land in this. Curious to hear whatever happens down the line with Louisville and Pitt, because those could be the swing votes, because they could wind up with different homes if the ACC were to dissolve. But ultimately, and very simply, this is at least a mechanism to get the unequal revenue sharing talks going. And that is the long-term mechanism for just breaking it up anyway, because eventually people will get tired of that.
Yeah, I mean, this was interesting to see this scuttlebutt yesterday while I was out and got to take in some of it. But, to be clear, the ACC ADs were told not to speak. That was reported by someone I was reading earlier, and I think a couple of others may have mentioned that as well. So that was intentional, the fact that they weren't speaking with the media. But it's all very interesting. It's, nice to, I guess, hear something realignment related that's not Pac-12 TV related or Big 12, Pac-12 related, although that still goes on. Do they have a TV deal yet?
No.
Okay. So just checking in, make sure I didn't miss that. But yeah, I mean, that's, been the ongoing saga. And now, this other wrinkle that's, popped up here over the last few months, when Florida State first started opening their mouths about this and Clemson opened their mouths about it in their respective ways, you knew that this was, a storyline that was going to be growing hotter as it went on along. And I think, we're still a ways out from probably anything significant happening, significant meaning actual movement. But all of the, pieces are in place to shake up the status quo and to, potentially shake up that conference. I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions, obviously. This is not a, hey, you all 7 get together and then you vote and then, boom, you're out, and next year you're in the SEC or something like that. I mean, this is a time-consuming process, one would imagine, especially with all the contracts and the length of those and, the networks involved. I mean, again, I failed to see really a great answer from anybody so far on just why ESPN would be willing to do this, but I'm sure that conversation's been out there because I haven't gone and sought it out. That's an unanswered question I have is like, why would you willingly dissolve games that you have for what? Like, and to then have empty spots that you replace with what? I'm seeing a lot of what I have seen is a lot of well, here we go. Here's the Power 2 starting to emerge and everybody else brace yourselves and all of that. So, we knew that this was, a possibility that they were going to continue rattling the cage and a likelihood after it was brought up by Florida State and Clemson, but I wasn't expecting it, honestly, just thinking about it. I wasn't expecting them to be rattling it as hard as they appear to maybe be doing so right this very moment, but it's very interesting stuff and we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And think about there was the bombshell of the Texas OU story almost 2 years ago, and then followed up a year later by USC and UCLA. This could involve lots of programs, and this could, again, involve a lot of the conferences based on whatever happens, but nothing is imminent. Nothing is right around the corner. It's just right now almost, would you say, conference realignment foreplay?
Yeah, I think that's the phase of it, and, the ACC, the talk is they get one more, they can vote to dissolve the conference. But again, okay, so say that was the play. Well, now you either have to form your own conference, you have to have somewhere else to go, and then that brings in okay, well, then you could start the big reshuffling, but having the availability of the teams that are. So say it is, and you're the Pac-12 and the ACC are kind of dissolving together and trying to reform a new conference at the same time. Well, Oregon and Washington and Clemson and North Carolina and Miami can't really be in the same conference and play each other all that much because your television windows, you can't kick off a lot of those West Coast games at noon Eastern, and you can't have 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock p.m. games in the East. So that's why that scheduling partnership didn't make a whole lot of sense after even all the wave of it, because there's going to be only limited windows you can put it in. So there's a lot of things to work out, and you're not just going to have an 8-team league when everybody else has got 16. So this is trying to figure out, can you get into, and what particularly the biggest 4 schools in that Magnificent Seven want to do is they want to get into those big 2 leagues. That's what they want. Or
want to get closer revenue-wise to whoever is a part. Sir, blah, blah, blah. This is a good question. I don't know the answer. I'm not numb to realignment. It has been amazing over the last couple of years, really for the last 12 years. But so does Notre Dame have any say at all or a vote regarding the ACC?
Well, they're not a football member, so whatever they decide football-wise doesn't really matter other than their scheduling partnership. So this is, again, everything's about football. Because if basketball had anything to do with this, Duke wouldn't be on the sidelines, would they?
No, they wouldn't be.
So,
yeah, and we were told time and again by the Pac-12 folks that basketball doesn't matter because remember, the whole Big 12. Well, hey, the basketball league. Hey, basketball doesn't matter. So basketball doesn't matter in that case. I don't see why it matters in this case. And if it did, then you're right. Then you would have Duke lined up ready to be the 8th team to go ahead and break that bad boy on down, which I've seen would potentially dissolve the grant of rights, but doesn't guarantee that it would dissolve the grant of rights. So there is still that tricky situation of, hey, you've got a party that's growing that could potentially disrupt this thing, but that's not 100% that it would in fact do that. And right now, you are looking at gobs and gobs and gobs of money that no matter who you are, would be tough for a lot of schools to pay right now, even if they grouped up together. So there is that unanswered question about what exactly could dissolve it. I know that I've seen that 8 could, but I haven't seen that as like a concrete, yes, it would absolutely dissolve it, and there would be no litigation, and there would be no, nothing that the ACC could do. So if I'm wrong on that, please inform me. I haven't been able to dive, fully into it, and I don't know what the contracts say exactly. But if it is as simple as getting one more member on board, and Duke's not that, then it's clear to say that basketball doesn't matter at all. But if it does, then that seems like a pretty simple solution, you would think.
By the way, and it's yet another layer, and there might be, it's like a spider web, and just kind of one layer after another. And now some of the focus, at least the last couple of days, not that it wasn't there, but now moves towards what happens with the ACC. Brandon Marcelo, 247 Sports, will join us at 4. He was in Amelia Island. And we'll have his comments from what he saw or not heard or what he's learned since that thing broke up yesterday. Also, then this one, it was pretty cool. I asked Craig about this, whether it would be an off-the-radar story or not. In the chat room, by the way, just firing away in Paxton. Yes, I did watch. I watched the third period of the Stars in their win to move into the Western Conference Finals. Craig can have more on the Stanley Cup final or playoffs at 4:45. Peacock is going to exclusively stream an NFL wildcard playoff game, not this year, but in 2024. And, you hear about streaming or how much is too much or whatever. This is going to probably end up, I don't know how many people, millions, I don't know, that might buy into whatever you have to do to get to Peacock if you don't already have it. But this is interesting. This is new. And when I saw it come out yesterday, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. When did we? And then I realized, no, this is new. This is something the NFL and Peacock, a one-year deal, streaming service to carry the first exclusive live-streamed NFL playoff game during the 2024 playoffs.
Yeah, NBC, trying to increase the value, NBC, Universal, Comcast, whatever gigantic corporate monster you want to call them, but they're trying to, obviously get their numbers up on Peacock, which is kind of taking a bit of a bath right now because of their infrastructure investments on the back end. But to make it work, why not put an NFL playoff game there? I'm curious to see who it is, though. What teams wind up there and how they get the draw of that.
It's going to be a 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern game. It says it will follow, a late afternoon game on NBC and Peacock at 7 o'clock.
So,
but he's asking about who's going to play.
Who's going to play?
AFC, NFC?
How do they get that?
Well, it's a wild card. Yeah, there's how many games in the wild card round? 6, 4? How many are there?
4, right?
Yeah. So, but do you put... So say it's the Cowboys and 49ers in the first round of the playoffs. Do you put that game on streaming?
Yeah.
That's what they're going to want, but do you put that one on the afternoon? Do you put the other one? And it's going to depend on who's there. Do you, if you get one of the teams, it's the Giants, the Cowboys, it will be the
Steelers lowest, or something like that. It will be, and it's here, the lowest potential viewership, but watch out for the law of unintended consequences. It might turn out to be the most competitive game of the weekend.
Yeah, 6 wild card games.
6 games, okay.
And I guess with the expanded playoff, but yeah. So yeah, I guess it could be from either one. I'm not sure how that works, and that's not really all that important right now. Although I know people would just love to know the information just for the sake of it. But yeah, I mean, if you've got that kind of I guess, idea that has, been out there that you're trying to build off on and you're finding ways to do it. I mean, what better than the NFL to try and increase subscriptions? I don't know of a better property if you're Peacock or Netflix or Apple or whoever than to try and get the NFL. Now, it comes with a hefty price tag, but you know that you're going to get viewers. You know that you're absolutely going to get viewers as a result of that. But, yeah, the question is how many? How much of a difference does that make having that one game? For me, I'm one of those that I just already fall into it. I already have Peacock because of WWE stuff, so I'll, not see any difference really on my cable bill or on my, monthly bill for that since I already have it. But, if it was a situation like, with the Pac-12 and they're going to Apple, like, am I going to go get Apple to watch Pac-12 games? I'm probably not, but I know a bunch of people will. The NFL, though, is its own thing. So I could see this being, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what, this being wildly successful. I could also see a lot of people just saying, like, I'm not going to pay for one playoff game and sign up for this thing. Mm-hmm. So I bet it'll be, really good for Peacock. I guess the big test will be not really how many they get on there, but how many, like, stay on there after the fact, because that's what you really want, right? But it will be a big deal, and I'm sure they'll flaunt whatever that number is for that night, for that game, and tout, 4 million people tuned into Peacock streaming for that. And, it's undeniable that streaming is going to be a big part of what, we watch sports-wise and just everything-wise moving forward. And it's already taken a nice piece of real estate and will only continue to take more. But, as far as everything moving that direction, I think this is one of those test lines to kind of see how it goes and see, what more they can squeeze out of it. But it's a smart idea. It's one that makes a lot of sense, and I'm very curious to see, what kind of response it gets.
I am too. So if they're going to give the NFL $110 million for this one playoff game, I would love to know what the estimated revenue they will get from sponsors who know that they may not be seen by what is normally any NFL game. Heck, it could be a Week 15 game between two teams that are 8-8 or 7-8, whatever it might be. But it'll be interesting, and that eventually will come out on who is buying what, how much they can recoup, and then how much do they make on how many people, as you mentioned, not only get that game but also stay with it for more than just one weekend. Yeah,
you might have a million people sign up just to watch that game, depending on who it is. And hey, there's a quick, I don't know what they charge. Like, I think it's pretty cheap, actually, Peacock right now.
$9 or something.
I think it's cheaper than that. Yeah,
they have they're pretty good little.
It's actually one of the better streaming services. Yeah,
they've got like a $4.99 tier, an $8.99 tier, and like a $12.99 tier, depending on, no ads on down to bombarded, I guess.
And they got a lot of options, but for like the $5.99 that I pay, because I don't mind like a couple ads here and there. It really doesn't disrupt me that much. I don't have to have no interruptions, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'll pay cheaper prices each month and not really see a difference. But I do think it's one that I've enjoyed more than I probably thought I would, and I've picked up some, dropped them, grabbed them back again. But Peacock with WWE's been a good little a hook for me, and I'll check it out and see how they do. But I think this is probably going to be, in very quick fashion, the way we operate from here on out. Where, I mean, how much would y'all like to bet that it's very successful, and then they announce shortly after that there will be an exclusive wild card Peacock game every year in the NFL playoffs? I feel like that's probably a given, and they will have a lot of success and use that as a launching pad to go ahead and make the exclusive streaming wild card playoff game. And the only question will be, like, does somebody else follow suit? And then, where do we get to where, how much are we having to pay to simply watch playoff games, right? Because there is a line that people will draw. But I think for this one, it's a unique idea that just makes a lot of sense and will be cool to see.
Peacock lost $704 million last year, according to the parent company Comcast. This is Richard Deitch and Daniel Kaplan with the story. The service is not alone. Outside of Netflix, streamers lose loads of money, whether it's CBS's Paramount or Paramount Plus or Walt Disney's ESPN Plus, which also has an exclusive regular season game this season. It's amazing. So they lose money, but I guess in some way they're making money. How do you lose $704 million and keep going?
Well, most of that is investing on things on the back end so that you get the WWE rights, you get these, you get all these other things, you buy these rights to things, hoping that that'll bring people to your.
They have 22 million subscribers.
Major League Baseball, any of that, like the Big Ten, like all that stuff that's coming on to Peacock. That's money that they've spent out, but they haven't made back yet because they need the subscribers.
And by the way, I don't love the I'm just looking at it from a pure Peacock standpoint. Like, it makes sense that they would do that because it's a cash grab, because they know the NFL will sell even if the subscription is like for 2 days. That they'll still get that month's worth of money from whoever signs up to watch whatever that playoff game ends up being. But no, I am not going to be one of those that, in the future, if the NFL is trying to pawn off like 5 different games on 5 different streamers, I just won't watch. Like, I simply won't. It's not that important to me to spend money now to have to watch every playoff game. So this is a little test tube to see how much of that they can pull off. I might be in the minority, but that's okay. I don't mind standing there. I'm not going to pay for a bunch of NFL playoff games that we used to get for free. I'm just not going to do it.
Peacock exclusively carried an NFL regular season game this season, Buffalo and Chargers of LA, and a pretty good one on December 23rd. Exclusive wild card regular season games will be broadcast on the NBC stations in the 2 cities of the competing teams. So if it was Dallas against LA, those cities would still get the game on NBC. And, of course, there's so much more to get to. But this is also part of the future. And so, and if you're the conference Pac-12 or whoever it is, even the Big 12 and whoever else, the streaming is like not a dirty word. It's not the best word you want. You would rather have linear, but there are going to be combinations, percentages of streaming, and this is another example with at least this specific game. The NFL is unbeaten when it comes to eyeballs. Unbeaten, but it'll be fun to see how that turns out.
There is part of me, though, that, we hear all the time and we're batted over the head with the fact that streaming's the future and streaming's this and streaming's that. And it's very convenient that it's coming from the people who stand to make money off of that. Yeah. And that all of these streaming giants are telling us, no, streaming's the future. Streaming's where it's all going to be. And it's like, no, let me wake up for a second and realize, oh, they're kind of tricking me, aren't they? They're convincing me and brainwashing me into, like, no, I'm just doing it. It's just, I got to have all these subscriptions to watch what I want to watch. And it's like, it used to be a simpler way, but here we are, and they're all trying to make as much money as possible, like with any corporation, and, they're stretching this out to where, to watch the NFL at some point, you're probably going to have like multiple different streamers just to watch games, but, they'll probably be enough of an audience for it, but I can definitely see where people are already stretched thin and just aren't going to love the idea of having to keep signing up for things that they watch maybe a quarter of the year or what have you, and really sticking with it. So, I guess with all of the failed millions and millions and billions of dollars that some of these giants have pumped into movie series and TV series that did not give them any return on investment, sports is something where they probably feel a lot more confident they'll get the bang for their buck. But I do think like how much of the staying power they get will be very interesting, and we won't know that for quite a while. But we are being told that streaming is the future, and that's fine, and I understand that, but we're also being told that by the streamers themselves. And so they kind of have a little bit of a foot in this game, for why they want to pound that over our heads.
David Johnson in the chat room, I agree 100%, Craig, not going to pay to watch playoff games, not that important enough. Even perhaps, I don't know, David, who your favorite team might be if they're playing. There's always the greatness of listening to a broadcast on the radio. Or do they do the red zone during the postseason?
That's not postseason, no.
Okay. Yeah. Also, the Masters, I believe, and I don't know if it was just this year or what, but I watched them. I watched them on my laptop during the day. I had them, and even a little bit on my phone. They were streaming a lot of the coverage from Augusta National in the first couple of rounds. So I did watch that, and of course for me initially a little bit of a challenge. And it's not like now, oh my God, I got to pick up a copperhead snake. I understand a little bit more how it works. And what was my favorite show, Yellowstone and the Tulsa King. So it's getting to be a little bit easier, manageable for me, 64. For some 64-year-olds, it's like what they do every day. But it is interesting how some of this is going, changing. And what used to be just the ABC's fundamentals of the networks that carried the games, that's no longer the case. All right, let's see. Paxton, from Justin, if I have YouTube TV, so they are charging me $249. If you don't have it, then it would be $349. On June the 7th, it would be $349 and $449. So that's for the NFL, correct?
That's for Sunday ticket.
Sunday ticket,
and that's the price right now. If you get it, it's $100 less. But I guess whenever July, whatever, or whenever that time lines up, then yeah, you'll pay $450 as opposed to $350. So if you want it, you better get it right now, here before whatever that deadline is in the next few weeks, because you can save yourself $100. But yeah, that's the way it's set up, and I think there will be plenty of people. Paul, you can talk about this more than I can. Because you're the bigger NFL guy, and you'll have Sunday ticket, right? I would imagine.
I don't know. I'm debating on whether I want to go to it. Here's the thing: I kept having Sunday ticket because it was a bargaining chip and lowering my cable bill
every year
with DirecTV. In that they could either give it to me for free or discounted, and I could always. And it got a little harder once AT&T bought them. But when DirecTV was their own company, man, it was great. You could call and be like, "Hey, I'm not paying." And not $9.99 a month for the Oprah channel because I don't watch that crap. And then I would like to cancel my subscription. Like, well, you know what, sir? We know you don't like the Oprah channel, but how about the NFL Sunday ticket for free? I'm like, man, that Oprah channel sounds interesting to me all of a sudden.
I did that back when it first started.
And it kept going.
So every year it was like that.
But now, because Google owns YouTube and they are not as intimidated by little old me as anything else, and they have multiple other revenue streams other than the NFL, and this is going to be a huge boon for them, I can't call up and threaten anything.
All right, from Elias, I hope I got that right, Gray. If the streaming services are smart, they better be prepared to offer their packages to some of the large restaurant companies for extremely low rates. So let's say you're at a sports bar. Name one. Can they then pick these games up and broadcast them in their restaurants?
I don't know how that works with Sunday ticket. I'm not sure.
How it's going to work is they have to leave a carve out in the DirecTV box for it that the bars already have. So that's what it's already made part of the deal, because that was one of the hangups was, well, what about these bars that have bought these and signed these contracts and all this stuff with DirecTV for, sometimes it's 3-4 years, at a time. So they sign these contracts. You're going to let them out. Well, AT&T is not going to do that. Plus the ability to use the service and go back and forth between, what are the games that are on linear TV and the ticket. So if you are in a bar, DirecTV will now send you a system that has those channels on it, and you can get them. So it's YouTube TV, but it'll be fed through the DirecTV box.
There's a lot of people who are saying that they won't do it. They're not going to waste their extra money. And that's fine. It's also May, so maybe some of you will. I
wonder what the Pac-12 is the one that's bargaining right now, with a couple of places to potentially stream. I know the Big Ten's got their Peacock, games as well, but that's not like additional. Like, you don't have to go and buy the Big Ten package on Peacock or whatever. But I am curious about if the Pac were to have a majority streaming deal, and how are they going to separate that? Is there going to be a special Pac package on Apple? Like, if that's their main home, which I know would be difficult, because then if Amazon has like a game of the week, then that wouldn't really be ideal. But I'm just curious if colleges ever get to the point where you buy like the Big Ten package, and it's however much a year to get all of the Big Ten games. I wonder how far away we are from that, and what that would look like. It wouldn't be $350 or $450 for that matter. But I am curious about who's kind of the first. You would think it'd be the Big Ten or the SEC potentially, but I don't know how you would work that with the fact you've already got these platforms that you're on. But I would imagine that there's at least some of those ideas being kicked around behind the scenes.
Someone mentioned in the chat room they're going to drive to Tyler and go watch whatever game at Buffalo Wild Wings. Clint Moses, I'm at a sports bar now. I'm going to get myself a Crown and Coke. Okay, good for you, Clint.
Good deal.
From W. Jason Spangler on the ACC, if it's about unequal revenue sharing that makes it even less sense, we're talking about what, maybe $10 million a year in difference?
Oh yeah, look, this is a long, like, it has to be a long game here for the ACC. Now, these Magnificent Seven are trying to find the quickest way out if they can, and you would think that they've got a plan after that. I think that's where it's kind of in murky, in that, I can tell you for sure that there's 4 schools that can probably go to a lot of places, but there's others that would wind up in different leagues for sure, but are they going to get as good a deal as they would get by just staying together? That's what, is kind of if curious. But yeah, it's about the first wave of this is getting unequal revenue sharing. That's what the first wave it is, because that's the thing they can deal with before you get into trying to figure out whatever the grant of rights says for the next 13 years.
Where you all go.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's probably been some discussion about that, but 7 schools moving, that's, the Big 12, it was like a couple at a time. I guess there was the Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado. Was that all in 1 year? Or was that split 2 years?
No, it was Colorado, Nebraska, and then like 2 years later, A&M and Missouri. Yeah.
So like 7 schools moving all at once, and where are you all going? Because even the 2 that are mentioned most often, I don't know that they want all 7 of those schools necessarily. Maybe they do. But even then, if they're having enough of a hard time onboarding a couple at a time, which clearly the Big Ten's focusing a lot of efforts on the LA schools right now, and the SEC's focusing a lot of efforts on OU and Texas. I mean, imagine having to focus your efforts on bringing like 4 schools in at once. I mean, that's what the Big 12's doing, and we know it's been a complicated process, so it's doable. But yeah, I think this is a threat on the initial level. Because if you're going to ask the question of like, well, why would you want to leave the pack if you're Oregon and you've got an easy walk to the playoff? Well, not that if you're moving like 7 schools at once, that they're all going to have an easier time, and they're not going to all have an easier time necessarily staying where they are, but that still matters, right? Like if we're talking about the playoff spots as having value, you would think that being in the league you're already in, you have a better chance than all going somewhere else and trying to grab one or two else, other remaining spots, because it is going to be harder to make the playoff in those other leagues, no doubt about it. So that's a part of this that doesn't quite make a ton of sense, and that's why I do think that the biggest thing right now is them trying to flex their muscle, see what they can get, and then if it's satisfactory, they move forward. If it's not, more rattling cages, and we'll see where it goes from there.
It may be more difficult in the Big Ten and or the SEC to make the playoff, but they'll also have twice as many entries. So
sure, but there's still only 12 spots.
No, there's only 12, and we know that how many? 5 of them are locked in with the Autonomy 5 conferences, and there's a group of 5. So you're talking about 6. Is that right? 6 at-large berths. So from Jason, who's reading or watching Andy Staples on the ACC's grant of rights document, saying it's pathetic. It's like 4 pages long. Doesn't even. The ACC's grant of rights came from where?
The Big 12.
They copied and pasted it.
And then they added 700 years to it.
Yes, and exactly right.
I mean, it is. But the problem with the grant of rights is it's written in such a way that they can't figure out what breaks it. Like, is there a condition to break it?
Well, Texas and Oklahoma were able to write a big check, and they were
for
able to
a
lead.
Year.
But yes, if it would have been 20 years left or 8 years left, it would have been interesting.
Well, and here's the thing too: their grant of rights didn't have another decade on it.
Yeah. That's what he was. Yeah, that's what he mentioned.
Okay.
St. Dominic's Rosary. I love Pac-12 football. If they go exclusively streaming, they're not going to go exclusively. I'm going to boycott their games. They need to be punished for a bad television deal. Well, that, again, if you like a certain team or a conference, that will be interesting to see how you react, whether it's the Pac-12 or somebody else.
Yeah, and I threw that out there. I don't think they're not going to be all streaming. They're going to have some linear. It's just a matter of, what amount that ends up being. That's one of the big questions right now. But I was more or less throwing it out of like, yeah, is there a league that just offers like, here's the Big Ten League Pass, and you get to watch 99% of the Big Ten games except for like the one exclusive each week or whatever. But I note also that that's not really feasible with the Pac-12 is that it may be more than one streamer. So it would be impossible to do that, to have a league pass and then, but you don't get the game of the week on Amazon or something. So it would be more difficult. There'd be more things to figure out with that. But I could see the Big Ten or the SEC doing something like that maybe eventually. But again, that too would be hard because in the Big Ten's case, that's all split up between 3 networks. SEC, they could easily do that. They're all ESPN, ABC, you would think.
Same with the ACC is all one
Yeah,
thing.
so maybe they could be the trial balloons. I don't know.
But Christopher Shadden, $35 million a year or $80 million a year. He's an Oklahoma fan for playing and winning the same game others play.
Well, I want to note this on St. Dominic's Rosary said about the boycott. Now, the intentional boycotters like him will be very small. The problem with streaming is they will get a bunch of unintentional boycotters as well, as people who don't follow this like we do will wake up one morning when the football season starts and be like, where's Oregon State and Stanford? And then they start looking around and on the day of the game, and it's a streaming service they don't have, and then they just go, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's where you start. That's where the risk is. That's the risk of, is somebody going to pay $4.99 or $8.99 or whatever it is a month for that? Because you're talking about, 4 or 5 months of the year that you're going to watch that, and then the rest of the time you're not. So,
yeah. And to the fellow OU fan there, I think I get where you're coming from as far as the school's going to make that much money, so you're basically finishing in the same spot. Is that kind of what he or she was getting at, I think?
Yeah.
And, that's understandable. It's great for the school, but, that money's not making me happier as a fan if they're not winning games. I think ultimately you're
Especially
a fan, right?
Yeah, no matter about last year was the exception, you hope, if you're an OU fan. But no matter how much money and how much you like to go to that play card, you want and have been used to for years being 10 wins, 11 wins, 12 wins, not losing more than a game or two a year, if not going undefeated.
Yeah, and so they're going to be making, twice as much, if not 3 times as much money, inevitably. But, are they winning, a third less games? Are they winning 2/3 less games? But, hey, you're making more money, so you're happy with that. I think that's going to be the really interesting crossroads for an Oklahoma fan or a Texas fan or a USC or maybe UCLA fan doesn't care as much. Just that's the stereotype, right? But, you're making all the money and these better road trips and all that, but it's still about winning, right?
Well, yeah, and immaculate administrators don't care as much about wins and losses. That's a fan's perspective. But I can imagine. So let's say Oklahoma in their first year in the SEC. They lose a game and someone's going to put up a big placard but we made a lot of money. That's going to get old immediately, and so.
And you're right. Yeah. The administration they don't care, but I'm looking at it from being a fan. I'm a fan. I don't care what the administration thinks about how fat their pockets are getting. That's never had an effect on me, and never will. I'll never see that money. I'll only spend that money and put it in their pockets, actually. So, yeah, it's great for them. And all right, instead of being 10-2 every year, we're 8-4, but we're making $40 million more a year. That's great, I guess, but as a fan, that wouldn't be as fun.
All right, when we come back, Hall of Fame pitcher Tom Glavine. He's been with us a handful of times back when we first started. He's been a go-to for us when it comes to Major League Baseball, kind of an off-topic, but with all the new rules changes, what does he see so far and thoughts on Major League Baseball in general? Tom Glavine, next, the Hall of Famer, right here on 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor. And about every third Saturday, I'll drop by there. Ashley, Cheyenne, or Carol will be there, and sometimes 2 of them. And walk into the 48-foot walk-in humidor. It's got dozens of brands of the best cigars. And the other day I walked in, I said, okay, I want 8 Churchill cigars. And Churchill cigars can cost you anywhere from $8 to $20. I said, these are the ones I want, a smooth Churchill, which is the longer length cigar. And I think it was Cheyenne and Ashley that just kind of, okay, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one? They have Vita Dreams. Vita Dreams is a gummy you can take at night. You kind of learn how much you want to take, how much is just the right amount, and then you seem to you tossing and turning is not an issue. It doesn't mean there aren't days in which you have so much on your mind you're not going to do that, but it does help you fall asleep very, very peacefully, and you relax. And you then get those extra 30 minutes to an hour of sleep every night, maybe more. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Samantha Duvall is in charge of marketing and also distribution. Memorial Day, right around the corner, 4th of July. What are some of the best opportunities for people if they want to order online and maybe get a bundle when they have those holidays in front of them?
TexasBeefHouse.com. You can order. We've got plenty of family bundles. Probably our most bestseller is our sampler pack. That gives you a variety of our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular patties, ground beef, our garlic link summer sausage. Right now, all of our family bundles are on sale. It's the best time to buy it. You can buy steaks individually. All of our steaks come 2 to a package. We ship Monday through Wednesday. So make sure you get your orders in early. That way you can get them almost the next day.
The owner, Aaron Duvall, his daughter-in-law, Samantha Duvall, head of marketing and distribution, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $5,000.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
When we launched what was then Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, we had an opportunity to have some amazing personalities and guests on the show, and one of them was always very gracious, was Tom Glavine, Hall of Fame pitcher from the Atlanta Braves, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, 305 wins, World Series champion, and I could go on. Tom, thank you very much. With Paul and Craig, I'm David Smoak, for being a part of it. What have you, now that we're a month and a half into the Major League Baseball season, your thoughts about the new rules changes as a perspective from someone who was a pitcher?
I mostly like them. I'm a big fan of the pitch clock. And I knew I was going to be. I feel like it has, I'm not so much time of game kind of guy, although I think that's important. But I think it has eliminated so much of the dead time in between pitches and in between action that made baseball hard to watch at times. So to me, that's been the big thing. It has, the word I always use is that it's made the product on TV crisper. There's more going on. There's less dead time. That part, I think, has been fantastic for the game and for the fans and for viewership. The shift, I'm okay with that. I wasn't real sure how I felt about it, honestly. But I feel like it's done 2 things. It's brought the single back into the game. It's made the single sexy again. So you don't see guys swinging for the fences. I think it's it's exposed some guys defensively. I think there are some guys that maybe were playing on the middle infield last year that are no longer playing on the middle infield this year, or at least struggling to stay there. So I think that lends itself to teams having to be careful with the makeup of their rosters. The bigger bases, I don't know. I don't know if there are, in fact, more stolen base attempts than there have been in years past. If it significant or not? But it sure seems like it is. It sure seems like small ball has become more of a part of the strategy, which, again, I think is awesome. Again, it could very well just be a perception and not a reality. So I think by and large, I like them all. I don't love the pickoff thing. I don't necessarily love the pitch clock with runners in scoring position. I do think moving forward, particularly as we get into, the nitty-gritty of pennant races and playoffs, I think the umpires are going to have to find some ways to be a little bit more lenient in terms of when they start the clock on a hitter coming up from the on-deck circle, when they start to maybe in between some pitches, because to me, playoff baseball, obviously it's the most important time of the year, and you don't want guys making bad decisions out there and down on them.
You were not someone who particularly worked very long when you were up there on the mound. I mean, I know, I can think of pitchers throughout history, like Josh Beckett would really have to adjust to the pitch clock because he just sat there and waited until it was almost unbearable. But do you think it would have been a pretty easy transition for you to just essentially grab it and go, as they're doing now?
I think for the most part, but I'm not going to say I wouldn't have been without some problems, right? I mean, I think, again, with nobody on base, it's 15 seconds to make a pitch. My notion would be, what the hell are you doing that's taking you so long to make a pitch? Now with runners on base, it's a little different. I know when I was a young pitcher, and I would say that virtually every young pitcher in the game has had a conversation with a veteran pitcher or a catcher or whatever early in their career, and has been talked to about, listen, when the game starts unraveling on you a little bit and you're out there on the mound and you got runners on base and things are going a little bit haywire, you need to learn how to slow the game down in your mind and kind of take in what's going on and make good decisions. That's hard to do when you got a pitch clock bearing down on you. So, that part of it I don't like. But then again, even for me, I know there were times where, you go out there on a given night and you're not quite where you want to be and you're scuffling to try and find something. I know for me personally, there were times, even with nobody on base, that I would get the ball back from the catcher and I would kind of take a walk around the mound and come up the backside of the mound. Now, would I have run into a 15-second violation at times? Maybe. Would I have run into a violation with runners on base? Maybe. But that was all part of me trying to slow things down a little bit in my brain and trying to kind of try to feel something, try to find something. So I think on given nights maybe, but for the most part, the pitch clock wouldn't have been an issue.
Tom, in watching games this year, do you feel like it does feel fresher, faster, a little bit of that to kind of, as you talked about, just the time taken out of the game that made it last a little longer? Does the game look all that different to you? Does it look more entertaining to you? How do you feel about that?
I think, look at when I put both my fan hat and my player hat on, it's a much better game to watch, hands down. I'd say when I'm sitting home and I'm watching a game, it's way more enjoyable because there's not a lot of dead time. I mean, you start watching a game and you look at the clock and it's like the next thing you know, you're in the seventh inning. I did broadcasting for the Braves again this year, and that first series I did, I was home at my house every night, no later than 10:30. I don't think I did that once in the previous 8 years that I was broadcasting games. So, it's faster and it's a better product. I mean, I think that was so much of the problem for baseball, right? It had become the 3-outcome game, the walk, the strikeout, and the home run. And there was an ungodly amount of time in between all that stuff happening. and it turned people off. And I think it's a much better product to watch in terms of the crispness of the game. I mean, I keep using that word, right? But it feels like there's constantly action now, and that's a far cry from what it was.
I have watched more games, and it's not just because the Rangers, my team that I've grown up with back in the days when they were the Washington Senators, but I've watched more games, I think, because of that. It's not just this, like, God, can this inning or even at bat end? Tom, last night, Cody Bradford pitched at Baylor, had a rough start, got to 5 innings, but gave up a couple of bombs in the game. What would you suggest for the Major League debut? You made yours, I think, in August of '87. What do you remember about that one?
I remember a couple of things. Number one, it didn't go great. That was the first thing. The second thing was I think I spent more time that night marveling over the fact that I was in the big leagues and who was standing in the batter's box than I did about actually trying to get guys out. You know, I mean, if you're making your major league debut, it's always a tough thing, right? Mentally, physically, all of it. When you're making it against an offense like the Braves, that makes it even tougher, right? I mean, you're not gonna face too many lineups that are deeper and tougher than that one. So that would be my first bit of encouragement is like, listen, son, that's about as hard as it's going to get in terms of a lineup that you're going to see. So take that for what it's worth. But look, I don't care whether it's your first start or your 100th start. The most important thing I always felt like, and I always talk to people when they ask me, what do you have to do to be successful? Obviously, there are a lot, but I think the one thing I say consistently to everybody is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be your own worst and toughest critic. And I don't care if it's a good game or a bad game. There are things to learn every time you go out there on the mound. And I think that's, for a kid like him, that's what he's got to do. He's got to be honest about what happened, right? Don't just say to yourself, okay, well, that didn't go well and brush it off. Go watch your film. Go see the pitches that you actually gave up on the home runs on. Were they all really bad, or do you have to tip your hat sometimes to a guy? Were you pretty close to doing what you wanted to do most of the time, or not real close? And those things all help shape what you do to get prepared for your next time, or what you do to get better the next time you're on the mound. Because I think too often as pitchers, you look at it, guys will say, well, I won, so I must have been really good, or I lost, so I mustn't have been very good. And I can promise you, I won a lot of games in the big leagues that I probably shouldn't have, and I lost a lot of games that I probably shouldn't have. So it's not always embedded in the results. You got to be honest with how you tried to execute your pitches and how close you were to doing that.
How many starts did it take you to not be wide-eyed at who was in the batter's box and to treat everyone with the healthy respect they deserve, as where you're not excited or intimidated or too cocky in balancing all that out?
I would say, probably a couple. So I got called up in the end of '87. I would say maybe a couple of months into '88, because I still, I hadn't faced everybody yet. So there were still a few guys out there that, I'd still watched on TV, and now I am facing those guys, and I would say, so it probably around that time, but I think too, it coincided with, I wasn't pitching great my first year. Obviously, I lost 17 games, and there was always the fear of getting sent down. And, I remember, again, I tell this story a lot, right? And God rest his soul, but he helped me. Russ Nixon, when he was a manager, I remember he called me in his office in Chicago, and he said, listen, stop worrying about getting sent down. Stop worrying about all the other things that are going on. You're getting the ball every fifth day. Now go out there and figure it out. And that helped me more than more than I can explain. When you take that burden off of, okay, it's my ball every fifth day. Now I got to go out there and find a way to compete. It kind of centered me on, all right, what do I need to do to get better? Not, oh my God, who's standing in the batter's box? Because you do, you have to remind yourself they put their pants on just like you do. So, the only difference they have is they have a little bit more experience than you do, and that's where you're trying to get. So figure out how to get there.
Tom, there's so many fun stars across the game right now, and I think when we talked to you maybe a couple years ago, I asked you about Shohei Ohtani and your thoughts on him at the time, and clearly he's accomplished a bit more since then in these last couple of years. But you know, you're a guy who hit and pitched all in the same game and did that, but clearly what he's doing is just a different level from what really anybody's ever seen. What are your thoughts, and how do you kind of wrap your mind around what Shohei Ohtani does?
You know, I think when you talk about him, obviously it's remarkable what he does, right? But like I like to think sometimes, and I'm not suggesting this in any shape or form, but I like to think sometimes, man, I wonder how good it'd be if he focused on one thing, right? I mean, he's so good at both of them, but you wonder, well, if he devoted all of his time to either pitching or hitting, what level would that take him to, you know? But I mean, I just love what he's doing. I mean, who wouldn't, right? I mean, I would have loved to have been able to been a guy that, pitched and played another position or batted every night. You know, I think that was the hardest thing for me going to professional baseball, signing as a pitcher was, when I played high school ball, I pitched, I played center field, I played first base, I batted third or fourth in the lineup. I was always playing. That adjustment to I only get to go out there once every fifth day. That wasn't easy. I'm envious that he's able to go out and do what he does, but also appreciative that he does it at such a high level. So, I mean, I've gotten a chance to see him a little bit more since the last time we spoke. And, listen, he lives up to the hype. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Angels deal with him as we get into the second half of the year, and then certainly going into free agency.
With the rotation you had in Atlanta with Smoltz, obviously with Maddox and also with you, there aren't many rotations in baseball history that I can think of that had at some point 3 Hall of Fame pitchers. I believe the Dodgers had Koufax, Drysdale, and then Sutton. Did you guys ever, at the time when you're playing, you're not on the Hall of Fame, have you ever reflected back on that?
Oh, I think we all reflect back on it, right? I mean, it's hard. It's, because people would ask us about it when we were playing, obviously. And it's really hard to dive into where you are and what you mean when you're playing. I think that we obviously always entertained the conversations when people would talk to us about, the best rotations of all time and where we sat in there. And to me, it was always, hey, I don't know where we sit, but the fact that we're having this conversation is pretty cool, and it's something that I never dreamed of. So, you try to enjoy it a little bit, but I think it's once you're done, you allow yourself to think about what happened, what you accomplished, your teammates, all of those things, and how special it was. And listen, it's a different game today, right? And I hear a lot of people say to me, well, man, look how much money you'd make if you played today's game and whatever. And my immediate rebuttal most of the time is, but maybe, but there's no way I would have played with John and Greg for 10 years in today's game. There's no way economically a team could keep 3 guys like that together for 10 plus years. There's no way. So, we all had our blessings in the eras that we played in, and it's not always about, the era that makes the most money. I was fortunate to play with those guys, and it was a blessing to play with those guys. And I think it's just so cool that, we were always entwined when we played together, however people wanted to say it, whether it was Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, Maddox, Glavine, whatever, however the combination was, we were always linked together. And to inevitably be linked together in Cooperstown too, it's just a really cool thing. And I mean, it sounds cliche to sit here and say, oh, it's really cool, but it's really hard to explain what it means. I mean, it's just something, again, that you never set out to do. I think we obviously thought as our careers went on that, hey, we might end up in the Hall of Fame together someday. But until that happens, it's really hard to explain what you're thinking. And then when it does happen, it's really hard to explain exactly how it feels. But I just know that it was, again, such a blessing to play with those guys. They made me better. I hope I made them better. And just to end up in Cooperstown with them is just so unbelievable.
How difficult or was it the transition to do baseball broadcast? Or is it a natural thing for you to do?
No, because I'm not a talker. I mean, like when I come on, honestly, when I come on and I do these interviews, I'm comfortable. You ask me a question, I can answer it, and I can elaborate on it. So, I always felt like I had the ability to do it because, I speak fairly well. I can elaborate on things. I know the game well. But, obviously you get in that booth and it's different. And I know the first couple of years I did it, you go through the first part where just don't say anything stupid, right? Then you kind of get comfortable with what you're doing in terms of how you're analyzing the game and the information you bring to the game. But I'll be honest with you, those first 2 years that I did games, my dear friend Glenn Diamond, who produced TBS games forever, would be in my ear telling me, you got to talk more. You got to talk more, And it took me some time, again, partly because I'm not a big talker. I'm pretty quiet for the most part. But also, when you're in a 3-man booth, you're trying not to step on anybody's toes, right? I'm showing up occasionally. The 2 guys I was working with, Chip and Joe, they're doing that for a living. And they made it really easy for me. They made it really comfortable for me. But you're still always mindful of, hey, this is what these guys are doing for a living. And I'm just kind of doing this post-career thing. But, I think it comes pretty quickly. You learn where to jump in, what to say, how to say it quickly, not talk over the action. So, I've definitely gotten a lot better at it. And I enjoy doing it.
Thank you, Tom, as always. You've always been gracious. We appreciate your time for your Hall of Fame career and what you're doing now. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys, and continued success.
You too. Thank you. Tom Glavine, Hall of Fame pitcher, Smoak, Glavine, Maddox, amazing. And he's right, it's hard to put those things together now. The Astros had Verlander, Garrett Cole. There was one other pitcher that, again, some of them way, way away from reaching any kind of the things that would put them in the Hall of Fame. Verlander will be a Hall of Famer,
But 10 years altogether, like he said, is fantastic. And if you were a baseball fan in the 90s, TBS, the Braves on TBS every night was great because you're really not going to get a bad game.
No. When we come back, we'll hear from Brandon Marcelo, 247 Sports. He was at Amelia Island with the ACC meetings. Ross Dellinger a little bit after 5. There is questions on the chat room about, is Louisville now among the Magnificent 8, and is that enough? And we'll talk to Brandon Marcelo also with Ross Dellinger again today at 5. Mac Rhodes, 420. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for a great deal, great customer service, and really just a great time looking at vehicles, looking at repairs, whatever it is that you're trying to get done. Richard Carr can be the people that you can count on, and I've counted on them a couple of times myself. But right now, a lot of great things going on at Richard Carr as they celebrate their anniversary in grand style. And that includes a lot of used cars at the moment. But right now, new cars have arrived, including the advanced and luxurious pickup better known as the 1500 Sierra Crew Cab. Right now, you can step up to the astonishingly advanced 1500 Sierra Crew Cab and save $3,500 at Richard Carr. Well-qualified buyers can also get 0.9% financing, no payments for 90 days on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock, but limitations do apply, so contact the good folks over at Richard Carr, whether it's on the website or over the phone or in person, and they will sort out all the details for you. Ranked number 1 overall right now as a brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers, Buick offers a luxury SUV without the luxury price and a quiet escape and premium drive with the lineup of Buicks that are available to test drive today at Richard Carr. For example, the Enclave. The 2023 Buick Enclave right now, you can save $3,000 on the Enclaves, plus well-qualified buyers get 2.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. They also have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Many of those are under $20,000. They're affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance for almost any credit rating. Quality pre-owned vehicles ready to drive today as well. And as I mentioned, there's the customer service, there's the service department, there's the new vehicles, the pre-owned vehicles, all that stuff. If you just want to drive your car or truck a little while longer, you can visit the website or give them a call and set an appointment with the service department, who is always standing by to keep you on the road and fix you up with an oil change, tires, whatever it is that you may need. So check out the people in business for 24 years in Central Texas and that has built a reputation during that time as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Brandon Marcelo, 247 Sports, scheduled to be on with us right now, but he just sent a text. I can share it. Scheduled to speak to some people starting at 4 o'clock Central here at the ACC meeting, so we're going to try to get Brandon. We'll have Ross Dellinger and then Brandon perhaps back-to-back in the 5 o'clock hour so we could get some information straight from Amelia Island. So there is that from Brandon Marcelo. We hope to be able to get him in the 5 o'clock hour. Plus, we're running up on the time to get Mac Rhodes today at 4:20. Paul, earlier, as we went to the break, you were mentioning some of the quotes. David Hale, who covers the ACC very well, as they're right now, one of the things, and in the chat room, one of the things we've tried to do, there's been speculation on this show, but what we've tried to do is make sure that we don't try to grab everything that's thrown against the refrigerator to see if it sticks. So there's a lot of like, Louisville's the 8th team and this and that. It's a lot more complicated than that. We love the passion. Paul, David Hale.
Yes. Per one ACC AD. Zero credence to the idea that 7 or 8 teams are looking to leave. Everyone has reviewed the GOR. Very close on a revenue sharing plan that would reward on-field success. Any plan would then go to presidents for approval. Would not impact TV revenue, though. So that, to me, means the new playoff revenue would be split up more based on who was actually in it.
Right, that's what they've talked about. I mean, you win more games, you make more money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty simple, and it's not, something that you'll love if you're a bottom feeder most of the time, because that means less money is heading your way, but that might be what you have to do. Again, this could all just be an empty threat, but I would imagine that if you're going to sit there and puff your chest out and, threaten to go leave for somewhere else, and there's probably a pretty good chance that even if it's just, some football sweet conversation that's entirely off the record, there are conversations that at least these schools puffing out their chest know they do have landing spots somewhere else, right? Because you'd kind of have to know that in order to feel like you're going to sit there and really, go all in on this. But, yeah, I mean, the unequal revenue sharing, something that's been mentioned with the ACC when it's been brought up here over the last year. So if that's the way they go, that will be very interesting. And we know others have tried it and not had a whole lot of success, so that would be intriguing.
The revenue sharing would not be for what they do in a regular season. It would be for the college football playoff money, correct?
Yeah, which is all huge new money coming in from the 12-team playoff.
So wouldn't it, whatever they're doing now, 36, 39, 42, the numbers don't matter to me, but just throwing them out there, they matter to whoever's getting them. But so, again, this is from David Hale. Let's again, any plan that would go to president. Here's the deal. It doesn't mean that Duke or Wake Forest won't get what they're getting now, and that will be eaten into by Florida State, Clemson, and the others. It will be whatever you do in the postseason. That's where the revenue would then be, I guess, unequal.
Yes, and the ACC actually has they're kind of like the Big 12 in that Oklahoma won the Big 12 pretty much every year. For a long time, and other than kind of some, off and ons. But FSU and Clemson have won, of the last 30 Pac or ACC titles, they've won like 24 of them.
Have they really?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been all those two schools. Wake Forest has got a couple. Maryland had one once, not even a league anymore. So you go the last 30 years of the ACC, really, most of it is, since FSU joined the league, it's mostly been Florida State. And then there's some that are, shared, like Virginia shared one time. But as far as, if you take those two out of how many ACC titles you have,
24.
It's a lot. It's a ton. It's really.
I did not realize
it is way out of whack. So it's not surprising that those two are leading the charge. It's funny to me that North Carolina's in on this because they haven't won an ACC football title. I mean, I don't know since when, but
I was going to say the revenue sharing part of the SEC, for example, that's not just the playoff teams this year, and that's everything. That's SEC championship game, men's basketball tournament, NCAA championships, a supplemental surplus distribution. So I'm just saying that, if you're not very good, that's going to cost you money. And so that's all I was getting at was you win more, you make more, but if you don't win a ton, then I
wonder, if the unequal revenue sharing, for example, there are how many teams, Paul? 14 in the ACC?
Yeah.
If it's football money in the postseason, that doesn't mean if you're Wake Forest or you're Duke that you won't get something. You just won't get an equal share. You're still going to get something out of teams making the postseason.
Right, but I think, more than getting caught up on the revenue sharing part, the top line, zero credence to the idea that 7 or 8 teams are looking to leave. Everyone has reviewed the GOR per an ACC AD. Now, again, it could be, somebody saying something and, meaning something else or whatever, but there was also some more Pac-12 comments, if y'all would like those quickly before we get to Mac Rhodes.
Yeah, and we'll discuss that with Ross Dellinger and also Brandon Marcelo because, it looks like there's a little surge coming out of some of what ACC met, the Pac-12 met, and so there are some responses, comments, quote sources coming out of those.
Yeah, so Ray Anderson, who talked, I guess it was about a month ago, and nothing's happened really since then except for just more talks, but he said today that I'm very confident in the long-term viability. The 10 schools are solid. Talking about the Pac-12, he says it will be summertime. July or perhaps August when the media deal is announced. Then the grant of rights will get signed and the focus will turn to expansion. And he mentions that potentially looking at expansion makes sense, and actually apparently named both San Diego State and SMU. The thought of expansion is real and could come quickly. This is all via Brad Denny, mind you, and I'll look up where he's from in a second. But I guess Ray Anderson also, he said, so TV deal around the corner, which, they've been saying that, but July, perhaps August, though, so maybe even a little further back. The idea of anybody looking elsewhere is nonsense. The notion, though, of looking at expansion, and particularly San Diego State and SMU, he did confirm that, and then said, as far as Arizona State looking elsewhere, there's been no internal talks about other conference homes because we are a solid, important member of the Pac-12. No discussion about other conferences. Only talks have been about conferences whose members want to come to our conference. That's from Ray Anderson of Arizona State.
Yeah, and I saw Jason Shear's response to that the last time he said something within 24 hours, what he said was not true. Here's another thing. What? No, go ahead.
I think you may be saying what I'm about to say.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
We kind of know that one of that's, at least part of that, is not all the way true.
By the way, if July and August,
we know that.
Yeah, if it's in July or August, San Diego State would like to have a conversation with you, because remember, their exit fee triples when I think it gets to July the 1st. Triples, not like 17 million, 51 million, and so that's something that's interesting too. So, hey, welcome to College Football Realignment. 95% of what's being in the chat room is about it, and there's a little bit of turf war and a little bit of we're better than you, and that's fine. Enjoy what we have, and we appreciate those of you who are watching the show.
Okay, I have a slight correction. It is 22 of the last 31.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, so
that's 9 instead of 6
that don't have Florida State or Clemson. And again, I'm saying, like,
are you counting what Florida State or Clemson they shared too?
If there's a shared one, Florida State's shared a couple of them, but
that's still, I didn't realize it was that dominant.
It's overwhelming, Florida State and Clemson.
It's well over 2/3, almost 75% or more.
And if you even go back before to like a certain date, you can go, it's been Clemson or Florida State almost exclusively since about 1985.
Is FSU paying for this commercial?
I'm just
kidding
with
you.
Too, but yeah.
We got a couple of Seminole folks, fans in the chat room. We appreciate that. Now, coming up next, Baylor's Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, and this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. The brand new facility has been open since December. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger. The location has changed to make things better for you, the customer, because they have so much more product. And then, of course, their values of a true handshake and the values of customer service remain the same. In fact, they even mentioned this in the script to me. Like Coach Aranda says, person over player, customer over what they do, they feel the same way with their customers. In addition to standard long lengths and tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, they now carry several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut, so you don't have to get it from them and then go somewhere else or cut it yourself. 2,500 square foot showroom, over 1,000 new products in stock. Also, welding supplies, hardware, do-it-yourself components for any project, professional contractor, or weekend warrior. Facility designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building, much more room to get what you need inside of whatever you're hauling, like your trailer. It is Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, with us most every Tuesday, unless he's on vacation and then all hell breaks loose in college athletics, so he's not allowed to go anywhere. Joins us on 365 Sports. Mac, thank you very much for your time. I got a question for you. And all this discussion that ACC now has got some speculation going on with them and their grant of rights. How do you as a conference, if you know somebody is leaking information, how do you handle that when you guys get together with your meetings?
You know what? That's the first time I think I've ever been asked that question. I think it's one. It's just frankly, it's disheartening. It's disheartening when you have the conversation and the commissioner, right, asks that this stay, within the conference, not be talked about outside. And so I think it's disheartening. I think that, when there's, maybe that next meeting, I know that you address it, hit it head on, be frank about it, not talk around it, it's hard. It's hard because, as a leader, you're wanting to be transparent, you're wanting to share information, and then, all of a sudden you do, and you ask that it remain confidential, and it's in the media, 2 hours later. And so, it absolutely breaks down trust. And I think that's what makes it hard. But I think, you address it, with that individual.
Mac, the Big 12 is in as comfortable a position as it's been in a long time when it comes to its station in life and TV deals and where they're going forward. Other conferences on either coast are going through their shifts and growing pains, and especially in the ACC right now, it appears that there's some factioning going on. Obviously, the Big 12 went through that before, where there were factions of groups that wanted different things. Having been on both sides of that, how difficult is it to get through it when there are factions, and that how different is it now that while there might be smaller ones for different smaller issues, that everybody's pretty much on the same page with everything?
Yeah. Obviously it's a lot more peaceful and satisfying, gratifying when you're not going through those things. I think as you're going through those growing pains, or there's different groups within with different agendas. I think the best thing, right, is you would hope that those things would stay within, and obviously many times they're not, particularly with social media now, etc. But I think that you need to be really careful and thoughtful about what I think you say, and always come from the standpoint that this is never about just your institution. This is very similar to being part of a team that you're one of many, and it's the well-being of the group, and how you conduct and how you have those conversations, how you communicate, if you're displeased and have angst within that family. And Big 12 has certainly had its share, so I'm not pointing the finger at any one conference at all. But I think it's unfortunate that all of that has to be played out, publicly, and because I don't think it necessarily needs to. And look, at the end of the day, you signed up for being a part of this conference, and how you work within, even when you're displeased, I think is really, really really important. So, it's difficult. They're difficult times to get through. And again, unfortunately, some of it is being played out publicly.
Mac, back in 21, after the Texas and Oklahoma story popped to the SEC, and there was a committee for expansion with Bob Bowlesby, then the commissioner, and I don't know who was on it. I'm sure you were, or whoever it was. Is that same committee? Is that the same committee that is a part of discussing any future expansion in the Big 12?
Yeah, no, it's different. That was a committee that it was two athletic directors. It was myself and another athletic director and two presidents, and that particular committee is not in play anymore. I think this time around, it's really, spearheaded by, our commissioner. It's certainly, our multimedia TV, consultant, and it's been out there. It's we're using Endeavor, and by the way, they've done an unbelievable job for the conference. And then I think in terms of member institutions, I think all of us have an opportunity to provide input and speak into it. So that's really how we're navigating, handling, what's next when you think about, just the composition, the future composition of the conference. And, again, what I worry about quite frankly is if, at the end of the day, we remain at 12 once Oklahoma and Texas, end up transitioning to the SEC, and how that's going to be perceived. And it should be perceived as extremely positive. Let's not, change membership, add to membership just to add to membership, right? It has to be value add. And I think, we've talked about it. It's not about really, truly about this upcoming TV contract, which begins July 1, 2025 and expires on June 30, 2031. It's really about that next one. How do we set ourselves up for July 1, 2031, as we think about adding value, as we think about, our TV partners, just wanting to be, really, really strategic on how we think about that. And, we'll enter into the marketplace, that next time in 2031, right after the Big Ten, but before the SEC. I believe the SEC is in 33, and then before the ACC in 36. And so I think we're well positioned. And again, I think it's smart for us to be thinking about, even though it's only 2023, what that looks like, what we look like in 2031.
I want to make sure I clarify. You say that when Texas and Oklahoma leave for the SEC, that you still, as the Big 12 is with what's left, the 12 teams, including the new 4, should be perceived as a positive?
Yeah, it should be perceived as a very positive. I think that, if membership doesn't change and it's, the original 8 and the 4 new, I think the conference is in great position to continue to move forward. And so I don't think we live or die if we add to membership or we don't. I think we're in a really great position right now. And, if we're going to add membership, let's make sure it's really value add. And so, again, there may be opportunity add to membership, and there may not be. Mm-hmm. And, we're all waiting to see where that lands.
Does that mean if you add anybody anytime in the next, let's say, year or 3 or whenever, with a lot of the percolation out there of what's going on with conferences, but if you were to add a team or 2, do they need to make sure that you as a team, a University, Baylor, or Iowa State, whoever it is, Oklahoma State, Tech, are going to make at least what you're making now and it doesn't lower the number?
Yeah, I think that's really, a fair statement that, and I don't want to say, in absolute terms, but I do think, it is a fair statement that, if we were to add somebody, a school, 2 institutions, 3, 4, and it's it's within this upcoming TV contract. I think, all of us would want to know that, our revenue distribution is going to stay, the same, or close to the same. And when I think about close to the same, I think the way we, probably absorb close to the same is that we know, or we believe, that there will be a big return on investment when we get to that second contract in July of 2031. So, I'm not going to say absolute. Look, if it was, a few dollars short of what now, that we would sit and go, well, no way. That wouldn't be very smart of us if that potentially led to a big gain, again in 2031.
When Yormark came up with the idea to extend the contract earlier than a lot of people thought, and it probably in a way changed what other conferences are dealing with now, what was your initial reaction when he said, hey, let's extend right now for stability? Was there any ADs, presidents who said, no, we need to wait? Was there any pushback to that?
Yeah, I don't honestly, I don't recall any pushback whatsoever. I was in favor of it, because I still think there was uncertainty. You're beginning to feel some uncertainty with the economy. Didn't know, right, how free, media companies were going to be able to bid and bid up, other than, what I thought was a very unique situation with the Big Ten, which, had started earlier. The downside, right, was there was no competition for our, two present and ongoing, partners in ESPN and Fox. But I thought the stability question was the biggest question that we needed to answer, the biggest hurdle we needed to go over. And, the way to do that was to, sooner rather than later, show that we had, a TV partnership for the future. And, again, and I've said it before on this show, right now, and it's not complete because we don't know what will happen with the Pac-12, but right now, I think there's pretty good odds that we will be the only conference that's on both of those platforms, both ESPN and Fox, the two biggest platforms for college sports. And but I thought we needed to sooner rather than later. When things are uncertain, when there's not clarity, that's when I think you're extremely liable or vulnerable to the things that you can't control, i.e., people looking other directions. Is there any appetite, other conferences, etc. So I thought, it was a great move by our commissioner.
Mac, the college football money, and you've kind of broken down how much, whatever the 31.7, whatever that number is, and how it's broken down. But do you see college basketball, men's basketball, at some point having their own deal that brings in more revenue, but also is separate from the TV deals with Fox or ESPN or anybody else? And is that also why a Gonzaga or someone else is very interesting or intriguing to bring into a conference?
Yeah. I think it starts with there is a case to be made that men's basketball is somewhat undervalued. And you could potentially say that with women's basketball as well, but primarily men's basketball, I think you could confidently say that, hey, it's more than likely undervalued. Well, how do you change that, right? If you continue to go out, to the market, to your existing current media partners, and you have both football and men's basketball combined together, I'm just not sure that you end up increasing that value. If you're able to go and separate men's basketball and go bid that completely different, then I think you have a chance. There's some nuances, some uniqueness within the market that may drive better value than what than what you've been receiving when it's been packaged. And so I think that remains to be seen. But I think that's why you would look at somebody like a Gonzaga, which obviously Baylor has a history with, but they've been a program that has been in the top 10. It feels like consistently for at least the last decade, and so that's why again you might look at them and or some others. But right now when you think about a TV package, a partnership where they're both together, there's probably it's about 85% value to football and 15% value to men's basketball. And so how do you increase that value? I think there's a case to be made that you take that and you separate men's basketball out on its own.
Mac, last question. We appreciate your time. It's the finals and graduation, Board of Regents meetings. There are still championships to be won. Overall, how would you describe 2022-2023 in the Baylor Athletic Department? There have been some of your higher revenue teams like basketball and football. Men's basketball really good, but out in 2 days, 2 games. Football was not, they didn't end very well. How would you describe overall how you would summarize the year?
Yeah, I really do appreciate that question. And so I think you guys know, right, we judge and monitor and gauge, our sports in terms of the 4 pillars, athletic success, academic achievement, spiritual growth, character formation. And I would say, 3 of the 4 pillars, we've been as good. We've done some great things in those pillars. And so it's hard to match some previous years, but I think we've been really, really good and continue to be. And those 3 pillars are extremely important when we think about well-being of our student athletes on their time here at Baylor. I think when it comes to the athletic success, this is where, for me, again, just being, candid, maybe even vulnerable with you and listeners, I have to have perspective, and it has to start with me. When you compare, season to season, sport to sport, I think you could say that, it wasn't as good a year for some sport programs as it was previous years. And I think that's a fair statement. But I also think that those programs, which again, and I'm talking about, football, talking about men's basketball, I'm talking about women's basketball, right? They still went to postseason play. And, for better or for worse, we have set the standard so high here that if you don't replicate it each and every year, you have a hard time dealing with perspective. You feel disappointed. And so just trying to manage and navigate all of that, I think is has been good for us. It's been healthy for us. It forces you to take, maybe a different look, a different lens. Now, I will tell you that even when we've had our greatest successes, we've tried to move forward and act like we didn't do anything, like, hey, that's past, and we need to make sure we're evaluating everything, talking about everything counts, everything matters. So I think, to answer the question specifically, I think it was a very good year. Is it what we're necessarily used to in those three sports? No. Do I think those three sports have great futures ahead of them? And as soon as next year, absolutely. I think all of our other sport programs, again, when you think about volleyball, get to a Sweet 16, and women's soccer, first year head coach, and baseball, with Coach Thompson, baseball, to me, very reminiscent of, Matt Rule's first year where it was 1-11, but you could see progress, right? You could feel it. The kids never gave up, competed hard, 60 minutes, never ever any finger pointing, right? Well, I see the same thing with baseball. I think Mitch and the staff have done a great job of implementing, their culture and building a base. You've got, our golf programs, women moving on to the NCAA finals, and men right now, I don't know what they shot today, but yesterday off to a good start in regionals. Both tennis programs went to postseason. Equestrian went to postseason. And my goodness, acrobatics and tumbling wins their 8th straight national championship. So, I think when you combine and you look at all of the sports, all of our 19 sport programs, how track and field men particularly competed in indoor, right? Wow, that was a really, really good athletic year. Now, you focus on those three, and yeah, it's probably, even though they all went to postseason, it didn't meet the standard that we're all used to.
Mac, thank you.
That was a really long answer.
No,
sorry.
No. I mean, I can understand you touching on all the good things and also those that were good but not good enough. I appreciate your response, your access, and we appreciate your time, and have a great week. Thank you.
Hey, and by the way, I left out softball, which is playing in a regional at Utah starting on Friday. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Mac Rhodes, Baylor Director of Athletics on 365 Sports. When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the chat room about value, money, revenue, wins, losses, and I hope that you were able to kind of listen to from someone's perspective who's an AD, and also when you do add, what do you need? Now, when the Big 12 added Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and also Brigham Young, those schools had some exit fees. Brigham Young, some not zero or some a little bit more. And then they got a little bit of money from the exit fees of Texas and Oklahoma. But just to add so you can keep up with the numbers, it's the numbers. It has to mean equal revenue of what you're getting right now, or you're wasting some time. All right, when we come back, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, Ross Dellinger, Brandon Marcelo, back-to-back in the 5 o'clock hour. And this is 365 Sports. A week from tomorrow, I'll be at the dentist office. I'll be at Stonewood Dental. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist, and he has done a remarkable job in helping me understand my dental hygiene, not just brushing your teeth or making sure you do this or that, but really a deep detail into, okay, this is what you weren't doing enough of. This is why you're in the position you're in. And if you don't start to do this, you don't want to know the answer to the future. And it really kind of hit me. Like slap me when it comes to my dental work and dental maintenance and hygiene. Dr. Steve Childress is elite. He has helped serve our country and soldiers when it comes to dentistry, traumatic or otherwise. Stonewood Dental has already sent me a text to remind me of an appointment I have a week from Wednesday. Now, maybe other businesses do that, but a week from Wednesday, just in case you were going to plan something. Nope. And I have it in my calendar. And then I'll get another one this weekend. Then I'll get another one on Monday or Tuesday. And, of course, even Wednesday morning reminding me at 8:30 I need to be at Stonewood Dental. I still have a few things to deal with, and I will. Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas, an amazing staff from the time you set up an appointment until the time you get your follow-up. Robinson, Texas has a great dental work, and it's called Stonewood Dental.
It's the season at Allen Samuels in Waco to find the vehicle that's right for you. Get amazing deals on new Ram trucks, Jeep SUVs, Chrysler sedans, and minivans, or a sporty Dodge. At Allen Samuels, we're committed to taking care of our customers, and that means having as much new inventory on hand for you to choose from. Of course, if we don't have exactly what you want in stock, we can help you build the custom car, truck, SUV, or van of your dreams. And order it today. Shop AllenSamuelsDCJ.com or come in to see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run, and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Tuesdays and Thursdays, taking a quick look around what is going on outside of the typical discussion, and that means a little bit of Pat McAfee today and a couple of notes on the NBA before we get into our final hour here. And I mentioned Pat McAfee. We'll start off with the big news that he has apparently found his new home for his weekday radio show that has been a big hit on YouTube these last several years. He's said that YouTube is where he'll always be. You'll always be able to find him there. But it was obvious that he was a guy that was very heavily pursued by a lot of big corporations. Amazon was taking a look at him, and ESPN, and obviously, he's already on YouTube, but a guy who's really had his star rise in an immense way over the last few years. And now it's going to burn as bright as ever as he has found his new home with his contract up and, deciding to move on from what he was doing previously. He will be joining ESPN this fall, the Pat McAfee Show, part of a multi-year deal. Per the network itself, it will air live weekdays simultaneously on ESPN, ESPN Plus, and ESPN's YouTube channel. So he was exactly right when he said, hey, I'm not leaving YouTube. This is where we got started, and this is, always going to be our home. Well, he will be live on ESPN's YouTube channel. A new weekday schedule will be announced before the launch this fall. And, however else he is involved, there will be more details on that along the way. But Jimmy Pitaro, ESPN chairman, called him a proven talent and said that he and his team have built the Pat McAfee Show into one of the most engaging programs in sports and all of media, called it a destination, and said they're honored to bring him to ESPN along with his show through a multifaceted, multi-platform approach. He'll apparently continue on College Game Day as well as one of their analysts also will be a part of their alternate college football broadcast as well, which you may have seen him doing last year. But yeah, Pat McAfee, it's official. He will be heading with his show to ESPN.
How, he just pops off words on this YouTube show.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting how they try to curtail that a little bit.
He's promised that he'll work on it.
Well,
I know he has to, but ESPN actually doesn't have to worry about those fines because they're cable and the rules are different for them. They just want to keep it a certain way, and I do know that it's going to be a very interesting sell for them, starting a $10 million a year contract with Pat McAfee after they've let 7,000 people go.
Stephen A. Smith, Scott Van Pelt, they pay the talent, the elite talent. It's the ones underneath are the ones who get cut.
Yeah, I saw that from Albert Breer mentioned $110 million the NFL was conducting layoffs for, and then, they now want to charge you or now there's a streaming playoff game after they cut $110 million off of their budget. They cut a bunch of people due to realities of the economic, situation, and then spent $110 million. That's what I'm trying to say. Spent $110 million on a streaming playoff game. So, you can find your ways around everything. But, that's a big investment on ESPN. Don't have the details yet, but you're right. They just got done with layoffs themselves, and here they are, and they're spending, obviously, a tremendous amount of money. Well over, you would think, $100 million, and to what heights it goes, who knows. But, yeah, that's got to be a bit of a bitter pill to swallow for some of the folks who have been sitting at home the last couple of weeks, right? But, he's a big star, and he'll bring eyeballs to the network, and so it's now official that Pat McAfee, or at least the Pat McAfee Show, will be joining ESPN. And quite frankly, after all the stuff he was doing with them, I don't really find that all that surprising. Maybe a bit of the freedom part of it, but like Paul said, it's on cable anyway. It's not as though he can't say anything. He just, can't fly it probably off the handle with his mouth, the way he could just strictly on YouTube. But good deal for him. So, Pat McAfee Show is going to ESPN. I know we're in a bit of a time crunch here. So on the NBA front tonight, we've got the draft lottery as we will find out who will be the team to get that number one overall pick and go ahead and pick Victor Wembanyama, who is the top prospect in the draft. That's not been debated very much. That's been the clear thing pretty much this entire time. And so if you're looking at who has the best odds for tonight's draft lottery, you're looking at the Pistons, the Rockets, and the Spurs all have 14% chances to win the top lottery ball. And then you've got the Charlotte Hornets at 12.5%, Portland 10.5%. Then smaller increments as you go down: Orlando, Indiana, Washington, Utah. For the Mavs, 3% chance they could land Victor Wembanyama, although very unlikely. Chicago, OKC, Toronto, New Orleans. Those are all the teams who will have ping pong balls. But yeah, Detroit and Houston and San Antonio, all at the top with 14% lottery probability.
The Mavericks have had, in fact, the number one overall percentage to get the top pick and have never landed that person. So wouldn't it be interesting? They got a 3% chance, and they might, and they do, or if they did.
I mean, yeah, that'd be pretty kick-ass, honestly. I mean, that would be awesome if they could get it. I'm not getting my hopes up, however, because that is very low odds compared to several other teams. But, I mean, you have a fighting chance depending on the way that ball, bounces around in that machine of theirs. So, yeah, looking, if it's not the Mavs, a couple of the other Texas team, or the two other Texas teams, though, have top odds. So we will see where Victor Wembanyama is most likely headed. That starts at 7 o'clock tonight on ESPN. And then elsewhere in the NBA tonight, you'll have the Western Conference Finals, game number 1. Lakers at the Nuggets. That will start at 7:30 on ESPN, so you'll have the draft lottery at 7, the Game 1 Western Conference Finals to follow after that with Lakers and Nuggets. Also today in the NBA, Doc Rivers fired by the 76ers following their Game 7 loss. So they made the quick change there as Boston moved on over Philly, and Doc Rivers is now out as the head coach. Meanwhile, in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Eastern Finals, game number 1, Panthers at the Hurricanes, 7:30. The face-off time for that one, and that will be on TNT. So we'll have the Eastern Finals getting underway. And, of course, over on the Western side, we now know who's going to be playing in that after last night's big win by the Dallas Stars. I was watching that game with family and had a great time watching it. It was a lot of fun to see the Stars make their way back to the conference finals with their big win over the Kraken, 2-1, but now it is on to the Golden Knights. So, Garrett, any thoughts on tonight's Eastern Final, and then your thoughts really mostly on the Stars making their way into the Western Finals?
Tonight I'm really interested because I was expecting Carolina to be there. But when you're looking at Florida, that was one I think everybody, even if you're not really a hockey fan, you were expecting Boston to kind of get past them. So to see Florida where they're at is really intriguing. I think that's going to be a fun matchup. I like Carolina to come out of that one. As far as Dallas goes, last night was a really intriguing game. Shout out to Philip Grubar, the goalkeeper for Seattle. He played his ass off, honestly. But Dallas just, they got the shots they needed. How
old was the player who made the game?
Wyatt's 20. He just turned 20 the day before yesterday. Yeah, Wyatt Johnson, man, he is so good. I think when you got cornerstone pieces like him and Audiger behind the net, I mean, you got a lot of promise there for Dallas. I like their first 3 line matchups. I think are better than Vegas overall. But Vegas is a totally different team since they got Mark Stone back from that second back surgery. They are going to be solid, but I like Dallas in 7.
So Dallas and Vegas for the Western Conference spot in the finals. And tonight we will get at least one advantage decided over on the East. Again, Florida, Carolina on that side of the bracket. And there are a few things off the radar.
All right, I got a question for you. I know you got to go, but there has been.
I don't have to go.
No. Of 7'3" or higher, taller players in the NBA, no one has ever played more than 900 games in a career. Now, again, that's a 10-year-plus career. Mark Eaton of Utah was the 875 games, so there's always the big concern about the big, tall players and their feet, their legs and their durability. So just a note about the number 1 pick, who will be the number 1 pick when the draft happens in June. Thank you, Craig. When we come back, Ross Dellinger, SI.com, Brandon Marcelo, 247 Sports, about to go straight into some realignment discussion, the ACC meetings and discussion that came out today. We'll have Brandon for that, Ross Dellinger on everything, and this is 365 Sports. The city of Woodway with a brand new, they just basically overhauled everything they had, all of the facilities that they have. They had the mother-daughter brunch for Mother's Day. It went incredibly well. They always have something. They'll have concerts coming up now that the weather's getting nice. And, of course, they have the Carling Bright Arboretum, the Pavilion, and so much more. If you're looking at having some sort of a major event, then the Carling Bright Arboretum and the Pavilion is a great location for you. It could be some business meeting, could be a wedding, could be whatever you want. It could be a family reunion. They also allow outside caterers to be someone that works the specific event that you're talking about. It's the City of Woodway. For more information on events and more, go to discoverwoodway.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We discussed at length yesterday the Ross Dellinger article, SI.com, about the next wave of conference realignment, who survives, West against whoever, the Pac-12 and Big 12, and, of course, other college sports landscapes. Ross joins us, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. In your opinion, and thanks for your time, what is the more intriguing storyline now? Is it the Pac-12 waiting and waiting for whatever they eventually do, or what is now occurring with the ACC? We don't have Ross? Okay, will you go see if we can get him? I'm sure he's on the line. We'll get Ross Dellinger, SI.com. Brandon Marcelo will join us, who is in Amelia Island. He'll join us a little bit after that time. So we'll see if we can get Ross connected here on the audio with 365 Sports. Also, Hall of Fame columnist John McClain will join us a little bit after 3, like about 5:40 today on 365 Sports, and also Paul's Top 5 to close out the show. We have him? Ross Dellinger with us. Ross, sorry for the delay, the technical issue. What is now the most intriguing storyline, the Pac-12 and what they're waiting on whenever that happens, or what we now see kind of simmering and stirred up in the ACC?
Hello?
Yeah, you're there. You go ahead, Ross. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hey, Dave. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I had a little phone issue here. I'm not sure what you asked. I assume it was about the ACC. Your first half was cut off, but quite a couple of days down in Amelia Island as the ACC athletic directors met with Jim Phillips, and I think some of them are coming out like right now, actually, and they are they're talking to media, and it's what you'd probably expect. It's a lot of we're all together in this. We're okay. We're moving forward. But for sure, there's been some anxious moments the last few months in the league over the revenue gap, and as I reported yesterday, 7 schools that had kind of coalesced and had met several times with one another and had reviewed, documents at the headquarters in Greensboro, and we're seeing how they potentially what the options were, which could have been, getting out of the GR in some way, the grant of rights, which they're bound to for another 13 years, or dissolving the league altogether to get out of the GOR. So there was a lot of solutions, but as I wrote yesterday, none of them were great. None of them were great solutions. And it doesn't look, I wouldn't think that this thing would move forward. And I think there was a lot of, maybe you could say, come to Jesus in Amelia Island over the last couple of days.
So, Ross, this new money will come from the playoff and postseason revenues that, with the 12-team playoffs, are about to explode for everybody.
The new money will, I mean, everybody will get a cut of what they want to do is the big discussion the last couple of days was a revenue distribution model, a new revenue distribution model. In the ACC right now, it's revenues distributed equally across all schools in the league, and I think there are schools in the conference that want an unequal distribution where the shares are based more on merit, merit-based revenue distribution model where you would have it unequal, and all that revenue is TV. It's a lot of different monies, right? It's TV money is the main one, although we're told that TV money is not going to be involved with this model they talked about the last couple of days. So it'll be money from the CFP and money from the NCAA basketball tournament, from the NCAA in general. All that stuff will be more so distributed unevenly now. Maybe in the league, they're working to in agreement there. But yes. The expanded CFP will create a lot more revenue. Sure, it will. And that it kind of remains to be seen how that revenue will be distributed among the conferences. We really don't exactly know quite yet, but the ACC is working their way to some kind of revenue sharing model that's different than the one they have now.
Ross, just saw a comment from FSU AD Michael Alford, says that he's confident they're moving toward a revenue model that can keep FSU competitive, and we're thrilled to be in this league and want to stay here. So given just kind of the talk over the last 24 hours is what you're talking about as well, it seems things have cooled down. What do you think, said in the come to Jesus moments that has turned this from a circus maybe a day or two ago to now everybody kind of moving towards maybe a peaceful ending here?
Yeah, that's oftentimes when news is put out there publicly. It triggers deep conversation. I think maybe some intense conversation. I think that's probably what's been had in Amelia Island. I think that AD's kind of went over a lot of that and kind of come to grips with reality and settled on down. And like I said, even if and I think there were 7 that met and talked about maybe dissolving the league or what other options they may have, there just weren't good solutions. And I don't think they were on board to do much at all. They just didn't have a very good path. And now I'd imagine that is, for the most part, dead, the 7. And so then you look at it with this new revenue distribution model that may appease some schools for a little bit. But, at a certain point, I think the Clemsons and the Florida States, maybe the Miamis and North Carolinas even, they're going to be open to overtures from other leagues if it ever happens.
Ray Anderson spoke. I saw what Brad Denny had some quotes from him about the confidence in the long-term viability, et cetera. Everyone's solid. We've heard that before from the Pac-12, and there is still no deal. But the part that was interesting to me was that by the summertime, July and maybe August, there might be a media deal. What do you think San Diego State thinks about that?
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for the Aztecs. They have to give the Mountain West Conference an alert that they're leaving, notice of departure, I think it's called, by July 1. If they don't give it to them by July 1, then their exit fee of around $17 million goes up in triples in cost to around $45 million, I believe. So the Pac-12 wants to add San Diego State in conjunction with getting the TV deal done. So if they can't get the TV deal done to August, that's obviously after July 1. I doubt that San Diego State will pay triple the cost. They would just wait another year potentially to enter the league. I would guess that would be the pathway.
Ross Dellinger with us, SI.com, on realignment. Is this the most tumultuous time you've ever seen, even though we've seen Texas, OU, SEC, USC, UCLA, and also the Big Ten? And we're not even close to being done, are we?
No, we're not. We could have a long summer. I think the Big 12 is being pretty aggressive, and Brett Yormark wants to expand, wants to add 2 or 4 members. As I wrote yesterday in that story, and then you've got the Pac-12 media deal that's dragging on, and then you got all the murky situation that is the ACC. So it seems like we're going to have quite a busy summer again.
Ross, you mentioned San Diego State there with the Pac. That seems like it's just a foregone conclusion at this point. I think you mentioned in your article that it just seems that way from every indicator. But how much of a percentage would you put on SMU at this stage? Better than 75%? Better than 50%? How do you view them in comparison to San Diego State?
Yeah, well, I think San Diego State seems a little maybe more along the lines of being a done deal with the Pac-12 as opposed to SMU. I don't know if I put a percentage on it, but I think it probably is above 50% that SMU ends up in the Pac-12. But you never know how these things go. San Diego State feels a little, longer, a little more more advanced, further down the road, so to speak.
Russ, do you feel like maybe all of this can just be, you mentioned the ACC, placeholding until the grant of rights expires, sometime in the next century. And then, but do you think for the Pac-12, a lot of this can also just be placeholding until they figure out what the real future of college football is?
Yeah, you're right. I think we all feel, I think everybody in college sports feels bound toward a semi-pro model of some sort, and maybe even a breakaway. You've heard that a lot over the years, a breakaway from a Power 5 or FBS from the NCAA. We do feel like we're heading towards some kind of big cataclysmic type of situation like that, which is probably partly attributed to the NIL and the athlete compensation situation.
Ross, thanks for your time, man. We appreciate it. As always, the column yesterday that kind of shook a lot of people up with what's happening with the ACC. And then, of course, you heard the term the Magnificent Seven. And now today, as they walk out of that meeting and they are all on the same page, Brandon Marcelo is going to join us in a moment, 247 Sports. Brandon was going to join us about an hour ago, but he's in Amelia Island and trying to get some conversations or quotes and whatever reaction from those who were in the meeting. And Dennis was saying, isn't what David Hale reported contradicting what Ross Dellinger reported? No. I don't know how that could have been the case. I don't see how.
There's no.
What's the example? What are we using here?
Of that they have been meeting for months and months and have been trying to find a way to change things up. We're now joined by Brandon Marcelo of 247 Sports with us on 365 Sports. Brandon, is everybody now hunky dory and they're gonna get around the campfire and hold hands?
I guess, I think a lot of people were jumping to a lot of conclusions that the ACC was about to fall apart and people were leaving. If these programs were going to break the grant of rights and leave, it would have happened by now. This is something that's been explored for more than a year by a lot of these programs. In fact, practically every program in the ACC has been to Greensboro, North Carolina, or now Charlotte, North Carolina, to look at the grant of rights and to study them. And there's no movement as of right now for the 7 reported schools or any others to leave the conference or anything along those lines. I do think, though, that the timing of it certainly expedites the idea of doing and adopting a weighted revenue model, which would favor the likes of the Florida States and the Clemsons based on their postseason success. And I could tell you, I just got done speaking to Florida State Athletics Director Michael Alford about that, and I asked him, what kind of extra money are we talking about here? Is it negligible? Are you actually going to be able to close the gap to $30 million, maybe more dollars compared to the SEC and the Big Ten? And he said there's not really a way to close that gap, but based solely off postseason success, we're talking about playoff appearance, NCAA tournament appearances, and things of that sort. You could potentially earn, as a program, an additional $10 million as a program. So yearly. Again, that's a third of where you want to get when you're trying to compare yourself to the SEC and Big Ten, but that's a step in the right direction. And Alford also says he is confident that the ACC is going to be able to drive up some new revenue streams. What that entails is not known, but is being explored, he said.
They'll get into Bitcoin, Brandon. That's how they'll do it. They can't. They are in a position where clearly you mentioned the grant rights. Everybody's looked at it because it's not just about leaving. It would be about just renegotiating a media deal with ESPN to bring up to fair market price or what they thought was fair market price, even though ESPN has no motivation to do that for more than a decade.
Yeah, and this, again, when we're talking about revenue distribution, it's coming solely off the college football playoff pot of money when it expands to 12 teams here in the near future and starting here next year. This extra money is not going to necessarily come from the TV revenue and not necessarily be able to say, hey, Florida State, for example, drives TV ratings. More so than any other team in the football season in the ACC. So do maybe they, deserve an extra $5 million on top of that? That could be argued, but right now that's not gaining a lot of traction. That discussion and a model including that. So we'll see, but I just don't see how that is ever going to be involved when it comes to ESPN money, and for that matter, ESPN having to get involved in anything.
So, Brandon, yesterday it looked like all hell was breaking loose. Today you've got FSU like, hey, we're thrilled to be here. Everything's great. Just what was the feeling kind of like? I mean, did it seem like a situation where there was a little bit of uptightness amongst the peers, or did it seem like just sort of business as usual?
Yeah, there's some uptightness, especially last night when the rumors were going around about the 7 schools maybe banding together, which wasn't true. But they came into these meetings knowing that they were going to discuss the revenue model, but also they didn't quite know what to expect what those revenue models would entail. And they also, surely, the other schools in that room probably felt threatened by Florida State and Clemson and others by the way they were coming in going, hey, we want to talk about revenue models more so than anything else going on in this room. In fact, Alford, FSU's AD, told us here a few minutes ago, he goes, I don't, sure we're discussing everything else, but number one on my mind right now coming to these meetings is revenue. And how do we get more money? That was his number one thing. And so that's not on the top priority list for all these other programs. It's important, but I think a lot of people were probably kind of taken aback a little bit by that yesterday.
How long do you think, though, even with this increased revenue, that everybody can look across the state at their rivals? And this is really Florida State and Clemson in particular here, because they're the ones who win the league in football more often than anybody else does by a large margin, and see Florida making 2 to 3 times as much as they are. Miami probably feels the same way. Clemson's looking at South Carolina making 2 to 3 times as much as they are, and really be happy with that for longer than a few years if they cannot make even more gains over the next couple of years to cut into that $30 million gap.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, my headphones are going out here and in and out here, but I guess, can you summarize what you just said there? I was breaking out. Sorry, man.
How long do you think that Florida State and Clemson can look across the state at their rivals making twice as much as they do and really be happy with just the $10 million?
I think I even mentioned to Michael Alford, how much of this is just kicking the can down the road? Because remember, the SEC and other conferences are going to go back to the negotiation table with ESPN and others in 2030. The ACC's locked in their deal with ESPN until 2036. And Alford said, in some ways this is kicking the can down the road, and they're going to have to continue evaluating how to get more money in the conference through other means. And as he told me, this is just the first bridge they're crossing with a weighted distribution model. And now it's about, after that, and figuring that out and getting that adopted, how do we get more money in the conference to potentially add on top of that? That's several years probably down the road.
Brandon, is there any concern from those who may not get the revenue they thought because of an unequal revenue sharing model? Does this ever end well?
Well, I say this. It didn't end well in the Southwest Conference, and it didn't end well really in the Big 12 with Oklahoma and Texas getting more money than everybody else. And for that matter, it just doesn't set well in the room when it comes to decisions being made because certain programs obviously have more power, even without having to say it, because they're getting the more money. And so, no, I don't – history shows us this doesn't really ever end well if you're giving more money to people. The idea, and I guess the theory behind this, is that you're paying them extra based on their postseason success. So, for example, Wake Forest, they're very successful in football. They would, in this model, be getting more money than they do now. And Dave Clawson, the Wake Forest coach, was telling me earlier today, we welcome it. Let's do this weighted distribution model because we're going to keep winning games at Wake Forest. I am confident in that. But if you're Boston College, you're not so maybe happy about that. But again, I think that the thing that's being hammered home, if they're figuring out a way to keep the baseline pay, which is $36 million per team each year, if that stays the same no matter what, no matter how successful or how much of a failure you are in the postseason, then nothing really changes for anybody else. It's just they're going to get more money out of the playoff pile when that expands. So in essence, I'm just throwing numbers out there. Sure. They get paid $36 million a year now. When the playoff expands, let's say that goes to $40 million a year. Well, it would actually just end up staying at $36 million a year on the baseline, and the teams that are more successful are the ones getting a larger share of that playoff money.
Is there a chance that some schools were barking to kind of get attention or even maybe to throw up a flare?
Yes, absolutely.
And then they got behind closed doors in front of everybody else, and they were not neutered but kind of scolded a little bit?
Well, I think everybody was scolded a little bit yesterday. Based on the conversations I've had, I think that they were all told, well, for one, don't talk to media after all this yesterday. This is, we're not dealing with this right now. And I also think a lot of people were told, we got to get in line. We got to get on the same page with all this. Because really, again, there's no legitimate immediate threat of any of these programs leaving. The grant of rights is as solid as anything in college athletics right now. And in an ever-changing world, it's amazing to be able to say that in college athletics. But again, talking to industry sources, if Florida State or Clemson or anybody wanted to leave the ACC right now, we're not just talking about a $120 million buyout. We're talking about other things on top of that. And we're talking about them potentially, because of their TV rights and all the games being owned by the conference and then through ESPN, $500 million. Who's getting that money to leave and go to the SEC if the SEC wants you? And again, if this is hypothetical, a type of hypothetical, remember, ESPN owns the exclusive rights for everything in the ACC and everything in the SEC starting next year, this upcoming season. So why would ESPN sit there and go, we don't really want to be a part of this where you're just switching cups? Florida State, you're still going to be on ESPN, but now we're having to deal with the ACC and how we're distributing this money, and are they losing the money on this? And then all of a sudden we're involved potentially in a legal battle of some sort. That's just, it's messy beyond even the money that's at stake.
Brandon, thanks for your time. I know it's been a busy couple of days on what's happening with the ACC. We appreciate your time and jumping on with us when you could.
All right, thanks, guys.
You
Appreciate
too.
it.
Brandon, Marcelo, Ross Dellinger, back-to-back here in the 5 o'clock hour. I didn't even get the question out, the entire question out with Brandon. Are these just a few teams that are barking? And what did he say? Yes. Yes. So now everyone seems to be at least calmed down, and now the ACC will try to move forward. There is still, I guess, the percentages and details, specifics, et cetera, on how they distribute what is going on with any kind of unequal revenue sharing. When we come back, Hall of Fame columnist John McClain, this is 365 Sports. I had a conversation on Friday evening with Aaron Duvall, the owner of Texas Beef House. It's a family-owned business, premium grade East Texas beef just outside of Tyler in White House. And also spoke with his daughter, Samantha, who's in charge of distribution. And for example, Memorial Day weekend is around the corner. 4th of July weekend is not that far away either, or just family reunions. And if you want to get together and look at what you want sent to you from TexasBeefHouse.com, they will get things to you overnight, whatever it might be. And they have hamburger patties, and they have sausage, and of course they have the Wagyu steaks, fillets, ribeyes, and much more. They have tri-tip. They have beef ribs. They have brisket. So it's not just steaks with what they have at TexasBeefHouse.com. Go online, TexasBeefHouse.com. You can contact them. There are phone numbers for you to call, for example, even Samantha, and give an order. And then if you use SICM10, you will get 10% off your original order on TexasBeefHouse.com. You have farm-raised, from the start to finish process when it comes to Wagyu beef. Wagyu beef, the elite beef. You hear about Kobe beef. That's just where they are, where that came from, but it's actually Wagyu beef. And TexasBeefHouse.com is elite at it, and you can get it the next day. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at gallerysports.com and sportsradio610.com.
John McClain joins us on Tuesdays, 365 Sports with Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. John, thanks for your time. What were your overall thoughts on the schedule the Texans have going into the 2023, excuse me?
A lot easier than last season. Last season they played the NFC East and AFC West. They finished 3-13-1. They lost 6 games by 1 score, by an average of 5.8 points a game. 4 more against good teams. They were within a touchdown in the fourth quarter and then not good enough to pull it out. This year, I had predicted before the schedule came out that they'd win 6 games. Now, I have no clue, of course, but I thought if they double last year's win total, people would be really excited. And then on my podcast yesterday, called Utopia Podcast, I went over the schedule, and when I got to 3 games left, I'd already picked them to win 7 games. And I said, whoa, I got to pump the brakes here. But it was hard not to pick them to win some games because they have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL. And yes, they play on the road against Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, and Lamar Jackson's, all losses, of course. But they should be better. They only need 2 things on offense, one being a big play wide receiver, which they won't get until next year. And then on defense, they still need some work, starting with stopping the run. But if D'Amico Ryan can make them better at stopping the run, they've been pathetic for the last 3 years. They could win 7 games. I'd see the over-under has gone from 5.5 to 6.5.
John, what have you gleaned? I mean, I know it's the Underwear Olympics and all that with rookie mini camps and all that, but what did you glean from last week and where they see some of the younger guys fitting in early on?
Oh, my God, Paul, they all look fantastic. Rookie mini camp, guys are trying to find the parking lot where they park. They're trying to find a way into the stadium, into the facility where the locker rooms are, the cafeteria. That's what rookie mini camp is really all about, mental, because they give them stuff the first day, then they take them out on the field, and they want to see who remembers what they were taught the night before. And I remember Bill O'Brien, after Deshaun Watson's first rookie mini camp, he came up to me walking off the field, and he said, "This kid gets it. He's going to be better than I thought, faster than I thought." And I asked him later, "Why did you think that?" He said, "Because everything we explained to him the day before, not only did he come back and do it right, but he had questions for us, and they were the right questions that showed he had paid close attention and he absorbed what we were telling him." So it's all about the mental. Position coaches can't teach every player to the same way because some are smarter than others. Some are able to disseminate better than others. So you have to find that out early, and they can't be in pads till training camp. So OTAs, which begin next week, and you still want to see receivers make big catches and quarterbacks to be accurate, even though they don't get hit. But until they put pads on and start playing preseason games and having joint practices, there's not much you can learn physically unless the guy's out of shape. And it's an old story, but I love telling it, is when Earl Campbell reported to Oilers training camp one year, he couldn't finish the mile in the conditioning program, off-season program. And the media runs up breathlessly to Bum Phillips' coach and said, Bum, Earl couldn't finish the mile. And Bum Phillips thought a second. He goes, "Well, when it's third and mile, we won't give it to him."
Great. John, the NFL knows how to make money better than just about anybody. Today, the big announcement about the playoff streaming game, $110 million coming their way via NBC to stream that playoff game. I know there's still some details to follow, but I know you can't be surprised by their prowess in carving out new avenues. But your thoughts on having a streaming playoff game and kind of entering the new age in a way?
It amazes me the way the NFL, the geniuses and Park Avenue come up with new ways to make money. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going to be next? Will eventually they put Super Bowl on streaming? No, they won't. Well, I can't say that. Can you imagine the money they could make if, say, the audience was 120 million and they only paid $50 each because it's a whole lot cheaper than the game? And I often wonder at a Super Bowl, what is the price that you don't sell out? Because right now tickets go $1,200. I tried to buy 2 last year at the last minute for a friend. I called a connection. He said, "Yeah, can your friend afford $4,500 each?" And I said, "Where are they?" In Roger Goodell's lap? We're close to it. And I said, "Thanks, but no thanks." What is the cutoff? What is it? And right now it's streaming, pay-per-view. When you can put your credit card out there and say, "Okay, I want to watch this playoff game for $50. I mean, that's why anybody that has billions of dollars and wants to own a sports team is trying to buy an NFL franchise. And that's why others want to sell. And I think that the Peacock Network, I read that they have like 54 million subscribers. And I don't know how many more they think they're going to get putting the wild card game on. But I'll tell you this, it'll help sports bars get more business because I don't know anybody that's going to say, "Oh, I'm going to go sign up for the Peacock Network." And those deals where you can cancel in a week, they're not going to fall for that. There's going to be some kind of protection against that. But I would guess off the top of my head, sports bars will be busier on that day than any time.
You brought up what they do and how they find ways to make more and more money, and the fact that they're going to this streaming for a playoff game. You're right. I never saw that coming. You know Mattress Mac very well. You work for GallerySports.com. You have a segment with him. You sit down and talk about everything. Can you tell us something about maybe Mattress Mac that we don't know?
That's interesting because on Sunday night we were at a charity benefit, and people were like Roger Clemens, Ken Houston, Don Troll, Van Chancellor won 4 championships. The WNBA, Vernon Perry still has the NFL record for interceptions in a playoff game 4. They were all there, but the star was Mac. And I was supposed to interview him for 45 minutes. So even though I'd gotten to know him well, I heard a lot of stories about that I didn't know, including how many times he's been broke. And he's from Dallas. He came down here to sell furniture after he learned the furniture business up there when he had to work to make some money. He came down and he bought a little bitty spot on I-45 north that he has expanded. But I didn't have any idea that he used to be broke, and his dad sold Nautilus equipment. And he's a fascinating character who doesn't like to spend the night anywhere else unless he has to, like, say, the World Series. He likes to be in his store every morning at 6:30, and he'll stay till 8:30. And if he has to go, like for a fundraiser, he will always be there doing it. And I know people have told me that they have walked in off the street for charity and asked him for a donation, and he'll say, "What's the charity? Check it out." And they may have some big flat screen TV to auction off. There's people that have come in there off the street, I know, and asked him for money, for food. Well, he's got a cafeteria right there. And so he just, I've never seen a guy who goes out of his way to do more for more people. And he can walk around the concourse at Minute Maid Park, which he does, and he poses for every picture. And he's with Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. Nobody stops Reggie Jackson. Everybody stops Mattress Mac. It's amazing, the Mattress Mac phenomenon.
Is he pretty excited that the Texas House voted to allow online sports betting this week?
Now, he doesn't think we should be able to bet in Texas. He thinks that it creates too many gambling addicts that's going to ruin families, and people are surprised by that. I'll give you a good example of what I was just talking about. He has a new thing today. It's on the Mattress Mac. He's in a bed at his store with the covers pulled up, and he's sitting up and he's eating a breakfast. And the breakfast, the video is he's gone into business with Denny's to feed, I think, 70 people who are veterans or first responders, and at a certain Denny's in Houston. And he's picking up the tab. And he does things like that all the time. And he was at this is a good one. University of Houston, who he gave $1 million NIL money to the basketball team. They were in Birmingham for the tournament for one of the early regionals. And he was walking around. All these kids were wanting to pose for pictures. And he said, "How do y'all know who I am? TikTok. So he does videos that they put on TikTok, and one in particular, he came out of the store wearing a purple gangster bandana and a purple, long shorts like he was a gangster, and he got into a purple Lamborghini but made a speech on behalf of TCU winning to get to the championship game. And Bleacher Report puts a lot of his stuff up, and they said it got over 1 million hits. So he is a marketing genius. His wife says he has a gambling problem. He says, "No, I have a promotion problem."
What are your thoughts now that Daniel Snyder's no longer the owner of the Washington Commanders?
That's the best things ever happened to the NFL. They're going to give him $1.5 billion of public money for a new stadium. It's the best situation an owner's ever gone into. You've never replaced anybody that there was only one way to go. And there have been some bad owners and some unpopular owners. But because you're a Commanders fan, this one has lasted for 20 years, and all these investigations they've had still have going. It's literally like they'd be celebrating, marching down Pennsylvania, turn it into a gold street and say, ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked witch is dead.
John, are they going to build on the RFK site with that $1.5 billion, or is that for Virginia? Okay.
No, they when he opened FedEx Field, it seated 85,000. They sold out every seat. It was a Taj Mahal. He's never done anything for it. They've had to shut down decks because nobody wanted to see them. I've never seen such a storied franchise fall in such a state of disrepair. And that Josh Harris group that includes Magic Johnson, they only got one way to go.
John, thank you very much for your time as always.
Guys, sick 'em Bears. Thank you.
Go. John McClain, Hall of Fame writer, GallerySports.com with us on 365 Sports. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em Bears.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Why did you get into this business?
We kind of were born into it, and it's been for several generations. Our family's been in the beef business, the ranching business, and we've specifically got into the beef business back in about 2015 when me and my son decided to form Texas Beef House and sell directly to the public.
Aaron, everyone knows about Wagyu and how elite that is when it comes to beef. What separates you from anyone else that may do this in this type profession? We
selected out Wagyu mainly because it's such a quality beef, and it's consistent. Some beef, some breeds, you may have, a good animal every now and then, but Wagyu produces really consistently good beef every time.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 ACC realignment thoughts. Now, this a little bit undercut by the recent news that the league appears to be moving towards a revenue distribution model that is merit-based on postseason. But, I guess if you wanted to apply this to anything afterwards, it probably still applies. So, number 5, Duke, Wake, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and I'll throw Boston College in here, have far less options if this thing were to break up. So they're kind of in a position where they have to listen. Now, you heard Brandon Marcelo a second ago, if you were listening, say that Wake Forest is in favor of the merit-based distribution because they're good in football right now. They're in the postseason. So Duke, I guess, would be in favor of it as it goes to basketball and so on and so forth. But as far as football goes, where most of that money is going to come in from the college football playoff, then Wake Forest, is for this. But that being said, that unless something really changes with these schools, and I should have put Boston College in here as well, they kind of are at the mercy of what the big schools, the big TV dollar revenue, most of the time conference champion schools want at the end of it. They just kind of have to sit there and take it.
I don't know if they have to sit there and take it.
I mean, I don't know what other option they have. I mean, of course.
Well, the other option they have is to rely on the granted rights. Go ahead, try to leave. I mean, they got to get something out of this. I do understand that they also understand it's smart to try to figure out a way to make some people happy.
Yeah, so I guess they're like every other conference's members who are not all blue bloods. I mean, look at the Pac-12. If you look at just the LA part of it, but then who do we constantly talk about if there ever were to be more realignment? It's Oregon and Washington. We're not talking about Oregon State or Wazoo. They know that they would be in trouble. Look at the Big 12, Baylor, Kansas State, I know KU with basketball that they would probably be okay, but, Iowa State, I mean, what are they looking at realistically outside of the Big 12? Not a lot. I mean, so... ACC, I mean, here you have these schools that you listed that aren't a part of the not-so-magnificent 7. And, same the SEC, you can even go like, okay, well, what about Van? They don't have quite as many. But, that's basically the case for everybody. I think, though, too, I saw like I don't even want to say. I saw somebody who's in media basically celebrating the fact that, if there were to be like more of this – ACC splintering and they go join the SEC, it'd be more of a fracturing and then, at all the other lower level schools. Like, what exactly do you think is going to happen to college football if it's just 32 teams all the time? Do you think everybody who's watching is just going to continue watching? Nope. All of these fan bases around the country are just going to be like, all right, my team doesn't exist anymore, but I'm still a college football fan.
And it's been regional sport for so long.
And we've been told time and time again that even if there is a splintering or fraction, it doesn't mean teams are just going to start disappearing left and right. Now, there might be some programs on the lower levels that, have to cut football. But are any of those Big 12 or Pac-12 or ACC schools? Probably not. So, there's a widening gap. I think that, that's obvious. But, there's less options for the schools who aren't, full of pedigree and history and big money across the board or big-time history, and that's the reality for every single conference out there. There's haves and there's have-nots.
What's going to be interesting is if they do eventually just trim it down to a handful of schools, eventually those who make the first cut, some of those who are like, we're pretty good, they may not make the next cut, and then the next cut, and then the next cut.
Well, what's so funny about this guy is the fact that from the position he's in right now, it's fun to point and laugh. But that particular team, would probably be the laughingstock of the 32-team league, and probably having spent the most money. That's the thing about it. So, that's one way to look at the future and try and predict it. But remind yourself of who you are too. Sometimes, just because you're part of the club doesn't mean you're the cool member of the club. It just means you got really freaking lucky for one reason or another.
Yeah, everybody's got a Grover Dill.
Exactly,
they've got the, all right, go punch him. I'm going to wait here. So
Archie had Jughead.
Yeah, exactly. Number 4. So you break up the league. What then? Now, Florida State, Clemson, UNC, and Virginia all would probably have landing spots and multiple options. And before anybody scoffs at this team's not AAU or this and that, look, they would have options. But, it would wane as you got down to, say, NC State, Virginia Tech, the only two schools in the ACC that repeatedly get over 3 million viewers on television, and television is what is driving all this, are Florida State and Clemson. There's only one game in the ACC last year that averaged over 3 million viewers that didn't have either of those two teams in it. It was North Carolina and North Carolina State because that's a big in-state rivalry and most of the state of North Carolina was watching it. So you have an issue here if you're those other teams and your juice wanes as you move on down the ladder. They have options on down the line, but even the ones in the Magnificent Seven, and we can kind of combine number 3 with this here, the options are limited past the top 2 or 3, really, and honestly, about who would be where and what and who would be interested in them.
Yeah, I don't know who to believe on whether they're whatever magnificent I can't say 7, 6, 5, 8 whatever they were, they all were sweet and happy today.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 3 was kind of along these same lines in that. Does the entire Magnificent Seven have landing spots? I mean, NC State and Virginia Tech are going to land somewhere, but do they have options that are acceptable to them, or does it start to get really weird, as where we keep breaking up leagues?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't happening, but, very well down the line, maybe this rears its head again, particularly with Clemson and FSU. But that was what I was questioning this entire time was, are they all insured that they have a spot? Like 7 schools at once, and okay, the top 2 or 3 or 4, sure, but NC State's barking. I just that seemed like a lot of schools, and I said the comment at the very beginning, that tells me if that's in fact the case that they've already talked and had to have talked with other leagues to feel that confident, or as a huge bluff on the part of half of those schools maybe, and I guess it worked out well no matter what in the end. But yeah, I mean those that barked, and in the end, I guess, are going to get what they want. But yeah, I would be curious to know if you could really take the NC State AD or the Vatech AD, behind closed doors and have a genuine conversation of if this really fell apart, are you getting an SEC invite? Are you getting a Big Ten invite? Because I'm not so sure about that. And if not, I mean, Big 12, I mean, is that where you're headed? I don't know. An alliance with the pack again? I mean, what are we doing here? But, yeah, I don't know.
The problem is so, say you start splintering off and, FSU and Clemson went to the SEC and maybe Miami or somebody else. You've got 4 schools here and you have 4 schools to go somewhere else. And then some of the schools come in the Big 12. And then you have this kind of remnant of the East Coast and West Coast. Well, that is completely untenable for playing games in any regard because there's such a gap in the time zone. This isn't the Big 12 absorbing some teams in the Mountain and the Pacific where you're talking about an hour or 2. You're talking about 3 hours of difference. So that means, if NC State and Oregon State were in the same conference, you can't kick off a game at noon and you can't kick off a game at 9 o'clock.
No, you can't.
So you can't do it. Number 2, what does your only TV partner think? Because ESPN's the only one the ACC has, so they can be doing all this, but ESPN is the one they have to negotiate with, and they have no motivation to do it. They're reworking their seemingly entire business model right now. So this would seem to be a non-starter when it comes to...
Yeah, ESPN is not going to help somebody to hurt them.
This was the part that when I saw this yesterday, I was like, this part doesn't make any sense, though. They'd have to pay more money to break their own contract that they already have a really sweet deal on for the next several... that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
To do what? To spend a bunch of money to get a couple of those schools into the league they already have to, I don't know. That part of it just was really weird to me.
And their investment in the ACC dissolves, right? They're not going to do that.
You already have you have a sweetheart deal that goes for another, guys, it's 13 years. They have the ACC for 13 more years. So why would they break a sweetheart deal with more than a decade on it just to get a couple of them into the league the other league that they already have? Yeah, that part, that never really made any sense, but I just assumed that there was some other aspect to it. But yeah, guess we won't know right now on this question.
No, absolutely not. And number 1, how valuable are you really? And the 2 schools here, they do have proven television value because through thick and thin, their people are watching. People watch to see FSU lose. Their numbers have been good even until the between 2017 and 2021 where things were bad. But when they're good, they're really good, and they drive the money. But how valuable are you really in comparison to where you're going? yes, if you're FSU and Clemson and you go into the SEC, you add a lot more value television-wise because that means that there's going to be games and conference games like FSU and Florida is now a conference game, and it's weighted that much more. Clemson and Oklahoma playing is going to be huge, but like, how valuable are you really? And can you keep some of that, lose some of that value when you make the decision that Oklahoma's made, Craig, to go in and not be number one for the conference title every year anymore?
Yeah, I mean, possibly not. Most likely not. We'll see on that. Oklahoma's a top 5 to 10 brand, so I mean, they're going to add value wherever they go. Same thing with Texas, and if Florida State's in the vicinity or slightly out of that, I don't know if you'd say I guess top 15ish, probably better for them. But I mean, do you add value to either the Big Ten or the SEC right now? I don't know. I'm not these TV executives and those folks, but there's only so few of those remaining, and they're one of them, or two of them. I guess they're on the screen. So that's where a lot of the chatter comes from, is they're not like people who are like them, like in terms of the value and the luster and the spotlight and all of that. They are more like, I guess, most of the schools in the SEC or a lot of the schools in the Big Ten. And I don't know. I'm very you sound like you want this. Why do you want this?
I don't necessarily want it. Okay. I mean, I would like I don't necessarily want it or don't want it. I want Florida State to have as much money as they can possibly get so they can remain competitive and compete for national titles. But I don't know if they won't be able to do that in the 12-team playoff anyway, being in the ACC.
Right.
I feel a little bit nervous like you do as an Oklahoma fan of, well, what's this going to be like year in, year out? Year over year, are you going to be constantly in it, or is it just going to be like, all right, well, this is our turn every 4 years? And look, I'll take LSU's lot where, they'll have some
big boys.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take LSU's lot if they can be LSU, not necessarily what Alabama and Georgia are doing, but if they can be LSU where, you have your peaks and then you kind of, go through it for a second and you have peaks again, I'll deal with that. But
is that the same person who's saying that, who says you expect and only want championships?
Well, I mean, no. That's all I remember and care about and will give merit to are the seasons you won championships. I will enjoy individual games and moments, but I'm not going to look back and go, oh, remember that year they lost 3 games? That was a fun one. No.
Well, here's the thing, and I didn't have time to clarify earlier on Oklahoma. I don't mind if they don't go 11-1, 10-2 every year, but they can still make the playoff going 8-4 based on the way the new playoff's going to work out. Everybody's going to have to adjust their expectations, and losing 3 or 4 games might not actually be the death knell that it was when it put you in the Meineke Car Care Bowl or whatever, as opposed to now you're the 12th seed in the playoff.
Right, because
that makes a huge difference, and you're playing in the SEC, so you're going to take a couple more losses on average, or another loss on average than you're accustomed to. But I do worry of if 11-2 or 11-1, 12-2, or 11-3, whatever, turns into 6-6, and then you're not even making the playoff. And that's what I worry about. I can deal with a couple more losses, and I was talking about that earlier. But if those losses are suddenly moving more towards 500, and 500 doesn't get you even into the playoff when it's expanded, and now you're just playing in an outside bowl, and there's 6 teams in your conference that are ahead of you on any, that's going to be a fall from grace. I don't care how much money you're making. That is a fall from grace, because right now, damn it, you are above basically pedigree and history-wise every single school that you're walking into that conference with, save for Alabama. You're on par or as decorated as any of those others, minus Alabama. So is that going to still be the case 10, 15, 20 years from now? Are you going to still be looked at the same way? Probably, because I don't think...
Or are you going to be Nebraska?
Are you going to be Nebraska, where, you may be getting the playoff every once in a while, but you typically are losing 4 or 5 games every year. That's just the part that I'm a little bit nervous about. By the way, though, got some Cincinnati news to
right.
Bust out the show today.
Are you done?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thanks to Texas Beef House for the top 5 sponsorship.
Cincinnati has entered into a new apparel contract for men's and women's basketball with Jordan Brand.
Wow.
And the rest of Cincinnati sports will be wearing Nike, that now official from The Athletic. New deal will be in effect on July 1st, and they were already kind of you saw their coaches on the recruiting trail wearing Nike and stuff. They were with Under Armour, that they had dissolved that, so they were already starting to wear Nike. So this isn't a huge shock, but it's official, and I don't know if the Jordan part was really out there all that much. So Cincinnati joining the Big 12, and will be doing so in Jordan Brand and Nike.
They had some other interesting NIL news today, and that there's a brewery in Cincinnati that is making a beer that $2 from every can goes to the NIL collective.
Smart, man.
Yeah.
By the way, on the 4 losses, that will be right on the edge of who does make it, but you have a better chance if you end up 10-4, or I guess you could say 8-4, whatever, 9-4 if you're in a championship game, of making that playoff if you're in a couple of the conferences, it appears.
Yeah, I'm talking about more about
the SEC and the Big
regular
Ten.
season. I'm not talking about overall. I'm talking during the regular season,
last
losing
year,
4 games.
Utah ended up 10-4. Did they win the Pac-12?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They would have been in, but that would have been with 3 losses to get in. And then, of course, Florida State was 10-3, USC 11-3. So that's right on the edge. But
they won the Pac-12.
They did win the Pac-12.
They weren't
so they
sixth
would be
in the Pac-12, hoping to get another invitation.
Now, I will say this for Oklahoma and Nebraska. This just occurred to me. Nebraska also historically had the worst athletic director they've ever had the minute they walked into the Big Ten.
You mean Steve Peterson?
And that
Say
probably
his name loud.
That probably did more damage than people realize at the front end of that they've not yet recovered from.
And again, Oklahoma is without question, top 5 brand, and Texas is
they have a good
in
AD.
that conversation
They
too.
have a great AD in
They
Josie.
do, both of them.
But
all right,
how good is their football coach? That we don't quite know just yet.
I cannot wait till we get to that point after a year or two of the SEC when we start to see some of the records of teams, not just those who joined it, because it's going to affect those who were in it too, and see how the reactions are to 8-4 rather than, again, what you're used to at 10-2, 11-1, etc. All right, thanks to Levi Caraway, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter. Sports Tonight 10:30 on the CW. Garrett, thank you very much. As always, runs the mothership. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. I'm out tomorrow. We have our banquet tomorrow night to honor the student athletes. Craig and Paul back at it here tomorrow, and I'll see you on Thursday at 3 o'clock. Until then, have a great night. Thanks to everybody involved, our sponsors from day one and everyone since then. Amazing they allow us to continue to do what we get to do, which is enjoy the journey. This is 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.